Hey, I'm Tessa. I thought I was living the American dream. I was married to Mike, the guy I'd liked since high school. We had a cute house in the suburbs, matching coffee mugs, the whole thing. I even got along with my in-laws at first. Karen and Bob seemed nice, always inviting us over for Sunday dinners, but that changed quickly. It started small, with Karen making little comments about my cooking. "Oh, Tessa, is this how you usually make pot roast?" she'd say. I thought she was just being a typical mother-in-law, but things got worse. Bob started questioning every decision Mike and I made, like suggesting Mike should work at his company instead of his current job. I tried to ignore it, thinking it was just normal in-law stuff, but I felt something was off. Then I got the big news: I was pregnant. I was thrilled and couldn't wait to tell everyone. Mike was over the moon, spinning me around in the kitchen. I thought this would bring us all closer, but when we told Karen and Bob, it felt like I'd announced I had the plague. Karen's smile got stiff, and Bob just grunted and stared at the TV. Mike didn't seem to notice, but I felt the atmosphere freeze. From that day, it felt like they were out to get me. Every visit and phone call brought criticism about my job, friends, and how I was preparing for the baby. Karen would question my food choices, and Bob would suggest I quit working because it was too stressful. It was driving me crazy, but Mike didn't see it or didn't want to. He'd say they were just trying to help or that I was being too sensitive. Things reached a breaking point at my baby shower, which Karen had insisted on hosting. When I walked in, it felt like I had crashed someone else's party. None of my friends were there, just Karen's bridge club and some distant relatives. "Surprise, dear. We thought this would be more appropriate," they said. I completely lost it. Right there in front of everyone, I laid into Karen, saying, "Appropriate? You mean boring and not about me at all. This is my baby shower, Karen, not your social club meeting." Mike quickly pulled me aside, looking embarrassed, and whispered, "Tessa, what's gotten into you?" "They're just trying to help." That's when I realized they had gotten to him. Somehow, my in-laws had turned Mike against me. The argument that followed was intense. Harsh words were exchanged, tears were shed, and by the end of it, I was standing on the porch with a suitcase while Mike closed the door on me. He said, "I think you need some time to cool off, Tessa. Maybe stay with a friend for a while." Just like that, I was out, pregnant, alone, and wondering how my perfect life had turned into a nightmare. There I was, pregnant and kicked out. Classy, right? For a few nights, I even slept on park benches, feeling like the world's biggest loser. Then, I remembered Jade, my old college roommate. I hadn't spoken to her in ages, but desperate times, right? I showed up at her door, looking like a total mess. Jade's eyes went wide. "Tessa, holy, what happened to you?" The next thing I knew, I was crying on her couch, pouring out the entire awful story. Bless her heart, Jade didn't hesitate for a second. She said, "You're staying here, end of discussion." So there I was, crashing in Jade's spare room, feeling like a charity case, but Jade wasn't having any of my pity party nonsense. "Get your butt up, Tessa, we're going job hunting," she said. Easier said than done when you're walking around like a waddling penguin, but Jade was determined. We hit every business in town, and just when I thought we were done, boom, baby decided it was time to make her entrance. I'm in the hospital, squeezing Jade's hand so hard it feels like I'm trying to juice an orange. She's right there with me, cheering me on. "Come on, Tessa, push, you got this." And then, just like that, Lily arrives, this tiny, screaming bundle of awesomeness. The moment I see her, it's like my life flips. I've got someone to fight for now. Jade helps me get back on my feet, watching Lily while I work 2 jobs. It's exhausting, but I'm making it work. One day at the diner, I overhear some guys talking about real estate. "Man, I can't believe that dump sold for that much. Location, location, location." Something clicks in my head. I start reading everything I can about real estate. Jade thinks I've lost it. "Real estate, Tessa? Are you sure?" But I've got this fire in me. I study like crazy, pass the exam, and before I know it, I'm showing houses. On my first sale, I'm shaking like a leaf, but I close the deal. It hits me, I can do this. Fast forward a couple of years, and I'm thriving. I've got my own agency, Lily's in preschool, and life is good. Then one night, I'm at a fancy industry dinner, chatting with some big shots, when I overhear something. "Yeah, old Bob's in trouble. Heard they might lose the house." My ears perk up. "Bob who?" I ask, trying to play it cool. "Bob Thompson. He used to be a big deal, but now he's drowning in debt. Shame about the house, it's a real beauty." I almost choke on my champagne. Thompson, my former in-laws. The ones who threw me out like I didn't matter. Right then and there, a wild idea starts forming in my head. It's risky, probably a terrible plan, but I can't shake it. I grab my phone and shoot a text to my lawyer friend. Alex, need to talk. Got a proposition for you. How do you feel about shell companies? Alex replies almost instantly, Tessa, what are you up to? I grin, feeling like the cat that swallowed the canary. Oh, nothing much, just thinking about getting into the landlord business. As I leave the dinner, my mind's racing. This is it, my chance to turn the tables and show them exactly who they messed with. Watch out, Thompson family, because Tessa's coming back, and this time, I'm the one holding all the cards. So there I am, scrolling through foreclosure listings like it's my new obsession, and bam, I find it, the Thompson house. I almost spit out my coffee. I call Jade right away. You're not going to believe this. Tessa, it's 3 a.m. Someone better be dead or on fire. Remember that crazy idea I had? It's go time. The next morning, I'm in Alex's office, laying out my plan. He looks at me like I've completely lost it. Let me get this straight, you want to buy your in-laws' house through a shell company? Bingo, can you make it happen or not? Alex sighs, rubbing his temples. It's not illegal, but Tessa, are you really sure about this? I lean in, dead serious, more sure than I've ever been about anything. For the next few weeks, we work out all the details. Jade thinks I'm nuts, but she's in my corner. If this blows up in your face, don't come crying to me, but also, I've got bail money ready. The day of the auction, I'm a ball of nerves. Alex is bidding on behalf of our fake company, and I'm in the back, trying not to throw up. Going once, going twice, sold to Karma Properties LLC. I nearly pass out. Holy, we actually did it. The next few days are a whirlwind of paperwork, inspections, and all the boring stuff, but then, it's official, I now own the Thompson house. Jade's helping me prepare for the big reveal. She gives me a look and asks, you sure you want to do this, Tessa? It's not too late to back out. I look at myself in the mirror, power suit on, hair done, makeup perfect, war paint. I think with a grin, oh, I'm sure about this. It's time they learned who they're dealing with. I grab my briefcase, feeling like a boss. Inside, I've got the new lease agreement, terms so tight it'd make a loan shark blush. As I'm about to leave, Lily runs up, hugging my legs. Mommy, where are you going? I kneel down, looking her in the eye. Mommy's got some unfinished business, baby, but when I come back, we're going to celebrate big, be time. I kiss her forehead, then head out. In the car, I take a deep breath. This is it, the moment I've been waiting for. I pull up to the house, my old house. Memories flood back, both good and bad. For a second, I hesitate, but then I remember that night, standing on the porch, pregnant and alone. Game on. I stride up to the door, confidence oozing from every pore. I raise my hand to knock, a smile creeping across my face. Oh, this is going to be good. I knock, my heart pounding like a jackhammer. Karen opens the door, and her face shifts from confusion to shock faster than you can say, Karma. Tessa, what on earth are you doing here? I push past her, striding into the living room like I own the place, because, well, I do. Family meeting, now. Bob and Mike rush in, probably expecting the cops or something. The look on their faces when they see me, priceless. Mike stammers, what's going on? Tessa, what are you doing here? I slap the papers down on the coffee table. Meet your new landlord, boys and girls. The room explodes, Karen shrieking, Bob's face turns purple, and Mike, he just stands there, mouth hanging open like a fish. This is impossible, you can't do this, Bob bellows. Oh, but I can, and I did. Now let's talk about your new lease agreement. I lay it out for them, rent jacked up just under market value, no pets, no subletting, no changes without my express permission, the whole works. This is highway robbery, Karen screeches. No, Karen, this is business, something you should understand, given how you treated me. Mike finally finds his voice. Tessa, why are you doing this? I turn to him, all that old pain and anger bubbling up. You want to know why? Let me spell it out for you, Mike. I tell them everything, about the nights I slept in my car, the struggle to find work while pregnant, giving birth with only Jade by my side. While you were here playing happy families, I was out there fighting to survive, for me, and for our daughter. Remember her, Mike, the baby you kicked out along with me? Mike looks like I just slapped him, stunned into silence. But you know what? I made it. I built a life, a career, all on my own, no thanks to any of you. Bob tries to put on a tough front. We'll fight this, you can't get away with it, he blusters. I laugh. And it feels good, go ahead, try, but don't forget, I'm not just your landlord, I'm the realtor who knows every dirty little secret about this house, every code violation, every unpermitted renovation. One call from me, and this place is condemned faster than you can blink. Their confidence deflates like a popped balloon. They know they're beaten. So, here's how it's going to be, you follow the rules, and we won't have any problems, but if you cross me, you'll be out on the street before you can even say karma. I gather up my papers, feeling lighter than I have in years. As I reach the door, I turn back one last time. Oh, and Mike? Lily says hi, not that you'd know what she looks like these days. I walk out, head held high. Behind me, I can hear Karen sobbing and Bob cursing, but all I feel is peace. I did it, I took back my power, and it feels damn good. As I drive away, I can't help but smile. Lily's waiting for me at home, and we've got some celebrating to do. Life's funny sometimes. They thought they were ruining me, but in the end, they made me stronger than ever. Watch out, world, Tessa's back, and she's taking no prisoners. Now, here's a question for you. Was Tessa justified in buying her in-laws' house and imposing those harsh rental terms? Or did she take it too far in her quest for revenge? After all, they kicked her out while she was pregnant, but she also separated a father from his child. Where's the line between justice and vengeance, and did Tessa cross it? Drop your thoughts in the comments. I'm really curious to hear what you think, and if this story fired you up, hit that like button and subscribe for more tales of revenge and justice. You won't want to miss what's coming next.
It was a beautiful sunny summer day, and the Appleton family were gathered on the patio. Craig, the head of the family, sat in the gazebo's shade, wearing a robe and a black bandage over his eyes. He sipped his coffee while his wife Diana sunbathed on a lounger with a cocktail, looking amazing with her perfect figure and impeccable looks. She fluttered her long, doll-like eyelashes and yelled at her stepdaughter Lisa, a 7-year-old child who was running around the pool trying to catch a butterfly with a net. "Lisa, stop running! Calm down! Can you play quietly for at least 5 minutes? Oh, naughty child." The girl was very active and cute, with curly brown hair and chubby cheeks. She looked like a little angel, but she had long been used to her stepmother's lack of affection, so she did not even flinch when scolded. A beautiful, huge butterfly with colourful wings landed on the edge of the pool. Lisa carefully took out her phone from her pocket and wanted to take a shot. She approached closer and closer to the edge of the pool and suddenly stumbled and fell head over heels into the water. Lisa started screaming and flailing because she could not swim well. "Daddy, Daddy, I'm drowning! Help me!" The father rushed to the pool in a panic, but he was almost blind and went very unsteadily, staggering and catching the space with his hands. He asked his wife for help. "Diana, can't you hear? Help Lisa, I beg you! I can't see anything! Where am I going?" But the woman did not even get up from the lounger, just protested. "You little brat! I told you to sit quietly. This will teach you a lesson. Stop shouting! Swim to the edge and climb out! Come on!" Hearing the girl's cries, gardener Peter threw away his lawnmower, ran to the pool, and jumped into the water. He quickly pulled the girl out of the water. Lisa rushed to her father, hugged him in fright, and cried, "Daddy, I was so scared. I just wanted to take a picture of a butterfly. The phone also drowned. I didn't mean to." "It's okay, sweetie. We'll buy you a new one. These are just little things. The main thing is that you're alive and healthy. Go change clothes in the house. But please be more careful. Don't approach the edge closely. The tile is very slippery. Don't scare Daddy like that." Diana flew into a rage. "What a weakling you are! You should have punished her for disobeying. She almost drowned and ruined an expensive item. All you do is spoil her. and she's gone completely crazy. When are you going to find a nanny for your daughter? I can't deal with her. She's spoiled and unbearable." But Craig sharply rebuked Diana. "How dare you? She is almost drowned, and instead of helping, you were sitting here. Thanks to Peter. Lisa is just a child who has lost her mother. I love her very much, and you will have to accept that if you want to be with me. Do you think that if you have your own child, they won't run around and misbehave? And yeah, I will definitely find a nanny. I've already placed an ad. But you see, I'm blind now, so it's very difficult to do." Diana realised she had gone too far and quickly backed down. "Don't be angry, dear. I love you very much, you know that. But I can't be tied to Lisa all day. I have training, fitness, massage and a beauty salon. And now, moreover, your business and your daughter are on me. So hurry up and find a nanny. It will make life easier for all of us. Anyway, I have to go. I have a manicure at 12 and a massage at 2. Love you. Don't miss me too much." Lisa was happy that her stepmother was going to leave and quietly sat next to her father, hugging him with her little hands. "I'm sorry, Daddy, I didn't mean to. Why is Diana so mean? She doesn't love me and you. You just don't notice it. I miss my loving Mummy so much. And you?" The father sighed, hugged his little girl. "I miss her too, my little one. She was the best. But you know, she's in heaven now. And Diana is not so bad. You're just not used to each other yet. But I promise you'll choose the nanny yourself. By the way, another candidate should be coming soon." The girl kissed her father on the cheek and ran off to play with her dolls in the yard, while Craig closed his eyes in pain and began to reminisce about his life. His first wife, Vanessa, was pretty and an excellent housewife. She was from a decent family, and most importantly, she loved Craig. They were supposed to live happily ever after. But no, 2 years ago she died of a serious genetic illness, and it all started after childbirth. At first her vision deteriorated, then her memory, then her arms and legs stopped working, and then Vanessa became bedridden and gradually faded away. It was so frightening, so scary to watch a young and beautiful woman become a helpless invalid. And Craig literally howled with helplessness, because no matter how much he spent on the medicine in the world, he couldn't get her back on her feet. After Vanessa's funeral, their daughter withdrew, cried for a long time, and still mourned her mum. Craig also thought he would never be able to live with anyone else. But one day, at a business dinner in a restaurant, he saw Diana. She was sitting with a friend, drinking martinis and chatting merrily about something. The business dinner also smoothly turned into fun, with dancing, and now they were dancing a slow dance, and Craig was powerless against the young and desirable body and the onslaught of the beauty. That's how their romance began, which ended in a quick wedding. Diana quickly settled in and felt like the mistress of the house. She confidently gave tasks to everyone and commanded. But she and Lisa just couldn't get along. And it was mutual. To be honest, Craig believed that Lisa was just jealous of him and his new wife, and that it would pass with time. But even after 2 years, the situation did not improve. The stepmother and stepdaughter openly fought. And recently, 2 weeks ago, that terrible incident happened. Their driver, Tim, asked for some time off for personal reasons, and Craig had to get behind the wheel himself. At work that day, a businessman stayed late. As he was approaching his car in the parking lot, 3 bandits attacked him from behind. He started fighting, but one of the criminals sprayed pepper spray directly into his face. Fortunately, a patrol car passing by scared off the hooligans. However, the eyes burn turned out to be so serious that Craig almost went blind. Now he had to walk around wearing black sunglasses or a blindfold while he was undergoing intensive treatment. The doctors warned him that if the medications didn't help, he would need an operation to restore his vision. This gave him some hope, but he was still terribly nervous. Craig was practically disabled for a while and was forced to stay home. What was most annoying to the businessman was that he couldn't understand who he offended so much. He hadn't had such sharp conflicts in a long time. Now he had to manage the company from home, talk to partners on the phone, and hold online conferences. Surprisingly, his wife, Diana, quickly got involved in the business and plunged headlong into this. Craig's thoughts were interrupted by a pleasant voice. "Good afternoon. Are you Craig Appleton?" "My name is Carol. I came for the nanny vacancy. I am scheduled for 12 o'clock. The businessman smiled. He couldn't see his interlocutor, but for some reason he decided that she was a pleasant young girl. He started asking questions. "Carol, how old are you? Have you been working with children for a long time? Do you have recommendations from your previous job? And what kind of education do you have? I just love my daughter very much and I want to find a real professional for her." Carol sighed. "Then I probably won't suit you. I have no recommendations, but I love children very much and am ready to work for a small fee. I have already met with Lisa. She's a wonderful girl. I promise to be with her all the time, to teach her." At that moment, the girl ran up. Seeing that her father was hesitating and frowning, she started speaking cheerfully, winking at Carol. "Daddy, let's choose Carol. I really like her. And by the way, you said recently that I would choose a nanny myself, didn't you?" The man weighed all the pros and cons. Carol seemed too young for a nanny, only 23, no experience, no recommendations at all. Who knows what kind of person she is? But her voice, what a wonderful voice she has. And Lisa really liked her. This was the first time. Oh well, what will be, will be. "Okay, Carol, you're hired, but with a trial period. You can start right now. There's a schedule of lessons and a daily routine in Lisa's room. Plus, you'll have to take the child to dance and drawing classes, walk with her, help her with her homework, make sure she eats well, and report to me about any changes in her health. Is everything clear?" The girl almost cried with happiness. She really needed this job. "Thank you. You won't regret it. I'll try very hard." From that day on, Carol started working for the Appleton family. She did an excellent job. Lisa simply adored her. She didn't pressure her, didn't scold her. They were more like friends. If Carol noticed that Lisa was starting to slack off or didn't want to write the unfortunate letters, she would resort to a trick. She would immediately organize a competition. "Okay, whoever completes the task faster and better will get the biggest and most delicious vanilla ice cream. And whoever loses will have to eat oatmeal for 2 days. Personally, I hate oatmeal. What about you?" Lisa panted and wrote those hateful letters of the alphabet, trying to outdo Carol and not eat unpalatable oatmeal. Craig was happy with the new nanny. His daughter was doing well academically and had a good mood. In the evenings, she enthusiastically talked about Carol, teaching her how to make a fancy hairstyle or create macrame. Only Diana was not thrilled with the new nanny and kept muttering, "You choose a strange nanny for Lisa. Not only is she a young upstart, but she spoils your daughter more than you do. What kind of upbringing is that? We need to be stricter with Lisa, otherwise she'll just relax. The girl started to ignore me. Before, at least, she would get angry, but now she just keeps quiet and goes to Carol. Craig laughed and said, "You will not be contented with anyone, my dear. No nanny is bad, but having a nanny is also not good for you. If Lisa is rude, you don't like it. If she doesn't say anything, also bad. Maybe you just don't want to find a way to connect with the child." Diana pursed her lips and grudgingly fell silent, thinking to herself, "Do whatever you want. Just keep that annoying girl away from me. I'm so tired of her." There was a grand piano in the mansion, and Craig used to be a musician in the past. Sometimes he felt nostalgic and played some melodies on it. But when he heard Carol and Lisa playing the dog waltz together on the piano and laughing merrily, he almost fell off his chair. He asked Carol, "Carol, do you play the piano? I'm pleasantly surprised. I was a musician in the past too. Play something else. I'm curious to listen." The girl blushed and replied, "I'm not a specialist. I just had a good music teacher in the orphanage. She taught me and said I had talent, but I really love music, especially this melody. It touches my heart." And Carol played a slow and romantic tune. And Craig literally fell into a stupor. Tears willingly rolled down his cheeks, and everything in his soul was overturned by the old experiences of his youth. He kept repeating to himself, "My God, this is simply impossible." When Carol had finished, he thanked her and asked, "Tell me, where did you learn this melody? It isn't recorded anywhere, that's for sure. Moreover, it was written by a person I had known." "My neighbour Rachel taught me how to play it," replied Carol. "She's a good woman, talented. If you could hear how she plays. But she has a lot of trouble now. Her son was taken away and she was fired from work for no reason. She's in deep depression. I try to encourage her as best I can." Craig's heart was racing and his legs became weak. He asked for more details. "How old is your neighbour? What's her last name? How old is her son? Why was he taken?" Carol sighed. "Rachel's last name is Lesnikova. She's about 30. I didn't ask, to be honest. And her son's name is Adam. He's 9 years old. He's such a wonderful boy, smart and serious beyond his years. I don't know if Rachel was married or who Adam's father is, but she once mentioned her first and tragically failed love. Last time, Rachel worked as a music teacher in a private school. She earned a decent salary and worked hard, but then the director set his sights on her. He is already married, over 50, with even grandchildren, and he kept harassing her, threatening that if she didn't agree to sleep with him, he would make her life so miserable that she would come crawling to him, begging for intimacy. But Rachel was not one to back down, and when the director began to shamelessly grope her under her skirt right in his office, she slapped him and threatened to go to his wife and write a statement to the police. That's when the old goat went crazy and really made Rachel's life a nightmare. When she was away, some people opened her apartment so carefully that it couldn't be detected and made a mess, scattering cigarette butts and empty whiskey bottles everywhere. And as soon as Rachel entered her home with her son, whom she had picked up from school, the child services and fake witnesses burst in. She didn't understand herself where this mess and filth came from. So they took Adam away, saying that Rachel was drinking and not taking care of her son, and so on. But that's a complete lie. I often visited my neighbour. Her house was always clean, I swear. She didn't even smoke, and we could only have a little wine on birthdays or other holidays. In short, Rachel was in shock. She was pounding on the doors of all the authorities, trying to get her son back and prove that she was slandered, but all in vain. The director also fired her from her job and even embarrassed her in front of everyone, telling everyone that she was an alcoholic and an irresponsible mother, and that she didn't belong in school. Since that day, Rachel has completely lost her spirit, spending all her time under the windows of the orphanage crying. Adam suffers there too, begging to go home. Just imagine what it's like for a little homely boy to end up there. They only show how wonderful it is on TV, how the children are well fed and dressed there. I was an orphan and had been living there. It's a nightmare. I feel so sorry for both Rachel and Adam. I would personally strangle this mean old man with connections who ruined my neighbour's life for his lust. Craig was shocked with what he had listened, and tears flowed from his eyes, irritating his already damaged eyes. Everything matched. It couldn't be true. He asked it with a trembling voice. "Carol, I beg you, bring Rachel here tomorrow. I really need to see her, or at least hear her. You see, we had known each other, but it's a long story. Just do as I ask." The girl was very surprised, but nodded. "Okay, as you say. I'll come with her tomorrow morning, if she'd like to, of course. But how do I explain everything to her?" The man said with a breaking voice. "Just tell her that Craig is waiting for her." When Carol came to feed Lisa lunch, Craig locked himself in his office, clasped his head in his hands, and began to remember his youth and Rachel. Craig grew up with his mother alone. He never knew his father. In childhood, she told him fairy tales that his father was a polar explorer, a geologist. But when the boy grew up, he understood everything himself and no longer asked stupid questions. From early childhood, Craig adored music. He could sit for a long time and listen to a favourite melody, and once, when he and his mother were visiting acquaintances, the 5-year-old boy sat down at the piano and, simply playing the keys, could play a simple tune. His mother decided to send him to a music class, where he met Rachel. Craig well remembered how stunned he was when he saw this cute skinny girl with 2 huge bows and sheet music folder in her hands. They were seated at one desk, and from that day on, Rachel and Craig became best friends. Then they decided to enter a music college together, made their first serious successes, and performed at concerts. Over the years, their childhood friendship gradually turned into true love. Rachel was always so airy and dreamy. For her, everything material was not the main thing. She lived with love, music, and didn't pay much attention to the fact that musicians' salaries were small and they had to live on a shoestring, saving on everything. But all of this really irritated Craig. Like any man, he dreamed of having his own house, a cool car, dressing well and living comfortably. That's why, after finishing college, he didn't pursue further education and instead tried his hand at trading and starting his own business. This caused the couple to argue more and more. "Craig, what are you doing? Don't give up on music. It's your talent. You're really gifted. Your fingers were made for playing, creating." But the man got angry. "Rachel, I don't understand you. You're not of this world. Don't you see that we're poor? How and what are we going to live on?" on the few pennies we earn from music. Who needs those concerts now? I work to give you these gold earrings, to dress well and eat well. Another girl would be happy with that. And you? You could give private lessons and earn good money yourself instead of trying to teach me how to live." Rachel was deeply offended, took off the earrings and threw them in her fiancé's face. "Take them! They're not a gift if you're going to use them against me. Maybe it's better for us to break up. I don't understand you. I don't know what happened to you, why you've changed so much. You've become harsh, dry and soulless. I want a quiet, simple family life. I don't need wealth. The main thing is loyalty, trust and love. And you've gone crazy, obsessed with these monies. You disappear for days, your eyes are red, you've completely given up music. When was the last time you sat down at the piano? I won't give private lessons. I won't take money from children." Craig waved his hand angrily. "Well then, leave. Live your life the way you want. But you'll regret leaving me. I'll become a big businessman. Then we'll see." So they argued and foolishly broke up without any good reason. Craig pursued his career and soon opened a chain of auto repair shops. He worked day and night like a squirrel in a wheel. Then he met Vanessa, got married, had a daughter, and other worries began. In this crazy whirlwind, there was no time to look back. His wife's death greatly weakened the man, but then he met Rachel and succumbed to her charms. It cannot be said that he did not love Diana. There were feelings, passion and attachment, everything except for that unique, light and pure feeling of happiness and trembling he had experienced when he was with his Rachel and music. And only now, when he heard that same melody from his youth, written by Rachel, his heart constricted and a wild longing came over him. He desperately wanted to meet Rachel again, to talk heart to heart. No matter how you look at it, first love lives in a person's heart all their life. It's never forgotten under any circumstances. The man could barely wait for the next day. He meticulously shaved and got ready in the morning. He couldn't wait for Diana to leave for the beauty salon. Her mindless chatter about rags and washing bones for neighbours and acquaintances was driving him crazy. Carol took Lisa to school and returned home not alone, but with Rachel. Though Craig could only see a blurry silhouette, the light scent of her floral perfume and her gentle, bell-like voice hadn't changed. The woman exclaimed, "Craig, is it really you?" When Carol told me yesterday that Craig wanted to meet me, I was surprised. "And you've changed so much. You've become a brutal and prominent man. What happened? Why did you want to see me? And why do you have a black bandage over your eyes? Are you sick?" Craig listened to her words and tears streamed down his face. He took Rachel's hand and felt its softness and delicacy with long fingers made for music. The man began to kiss and caress each finger and whispered, "My dear Rachel, how happy I am to see you, to breathe your scent. We were such fools to break up back then. You ask what's happened to me. 2 weeks ago a bunch of ruffians attacked me and sprayed me with pepper spray in the face. Now I'm almost blind. I can only see blurry silhouettes. The doctors say I need an operation. But that's not important. Carol told me that you have a son, Adam. Rachel, tell me, is he mine? Tell me the truth. Do I really have a son?" The woman sighed and answered softly, "Yes, Craig, Adam is your son. I haven't been with any other men except for you. No matter how hard I try to forget you, to get you out of my head, I can't. But they took my little boy from me. My heart is breaking. I can hardly sleep. I just sit and wait outside the orphanage, hoping he'll wave to me out of the window. What did I do to deserve all this? I never did anything wrong to anyone. How I hate that lecherous goat who had ruined my whole life. He's paid everyone off just to hurt me as much as possible. I'm so desperate that I'm about to agree to his terms, just so he'll give me my son back. There's no other way." Craig squeezed her hand tightly and almost shouted, "No, don't even think about it. I'll help you get your boy back. Give me all his information and yours too. I'll find the right people, hire the best lawyers, and together we'll bring down that wretch. I have connections in the police department. Remember Henry Black? You won't believe it, but he's already a police captain. So don't worry, I'll get Adam back. I won't let my son wander through orphanages. Please trust me, Rachel. Everything will be fine. I've never met anyone like you, and now I won't let you go. Know that." They said their warm goodbyes, and Rachel truly regained hope. Craig called Henry, and he quickly agreed to his classmate's request, suggesting that they carry out the operation. Rachel had to call the director and pretend to agree to his terms, and set up a meeting. They gave her a microphone, and her task was to make her boss confess to everything. Then he can be caught. And so she did. Rachel was distressed, but she was ready to do anything for her son. She took a deep breath and resolutely dialed the director's number. He reluctantly answered. "You finally agreed, stubborn girl? Or why are you calling?" Inside Rachel, anger boiled and she could barely hold herself back. But she answered as gently as possible. "Edward, I beg you, give me back my son. I agree to anything. Let's meet. Tell me where and when." He smirked. "Well, let's meet. Tomorrow at 6 in the evening in my office. There's also a comfortable couch for discussions. I'm waiting for you, my sweet little bird." Rachel felt sick from the lecherous man's words, but she pulled herself together, dressed as provocatively as her upbringing allowed her to, a blouse with a deep neckline, a pencil skirt and high-heeled shoes. She applied more lipstick to her already plump lips, carefully hid and checked the recording device, and went to the director on shaky legs. The detective said that if the situation got out of control, Rachel would open the window. The woman knocked and entered the office. The director was sitting in his chair, lounging and grinning hungrily. He appreciatively looked Rachel up and down and said, "Good evening, my little bird. I see that the situation has been good to you, and you've become more talkative. Good job. It's been a while. Ooh, what an appetizing body. I'm burning up. Come on, take off your clothes and let me admire you." Rachel nearly choked on his audacity and was petrified. What if he attacked her? But the thought of Adam and the operatives outside gave her courage, and she started taking out champagne and sweets. "Edward, why so fast? I can't do it that way. Let's drink. Relax." He didn't object, uncorked the champagne, poured alcohol into glasses. Meanwhile, Rachel got to the point. "Edward, before we, I must be sure that you'll give me back my son. Can you promise me that? I know you're the one who's responsible for what happened, but how did you manage to do it? I don't understand. How did you manage to tarnish my good name?" Edward grinned. "You should have been more agreeable from the start. Then there wouldn't have been any problem. No one has the right to turn away from me. Do you think that my secretary and the physical education teacher work here for nothing? They turned out to be smarter than you, and now receive excellent salaries and a regular bonus. As for you, there's nothing complicated. My good and very close acquaintance works in the guardianship authorities, and it was thanks to my patronage that she got there, so she paid me back. She put your boy in an orphanage, and I hired bandits and witnesses to that mess in your flat. Money solves everything these days, believe me. Well, I liked you. I fell for you. So the more pleasure you give me, the faster you'll get your son back. So, are you relaxed now? Take off your clothes. You talk too much." Rachel realized that she couldn't delay any longer. Pretending to unbutton her blouse, she walked over to the window and opened it quickly. She began to pray and wait for the police officer to arrive. The director completely lost control and, with surprising agility for his age, ran up to the woman and began to indecently touch her, trying to rip her blouse off. Rachel started screaming and fighting back, repulsed by the old man. Edward began to push her, knocking everything off the table. "Shut up, you fool! There's no one here anyway. Even the janitor has left. Why did you decide to fight again? Have you lost your mind?" At that moment, the flimsy door burst open with a crash, and the operative burst into the office. He swiftly arrested the scoundrel and rebuked him. "Shame on you, engaging in such indecent behaviour at your age. And you're a married man. You already have grandchildren. How will they feel about learning what their grandfather has been up to?" The director cursed and struggled to break free. "You had me wrapped around your finger. You'll pay for this. I have connections, you know." The policeman quickly shut him up. "We'll deal with your connections later. How did you manage to take this woman's child and cover it up?" Rachel finally relaxed, exhaled, and burst into tears from the stress she had just endured. "Will they return Adam to me now? He confessed to everything, didn't he? Did I do everything right?" She handed the officer a recording device. He reassured her. "We'll sort everything out. I think you'll be reunited with your son soon. Don't worry. And we'll send the scoundrel to prison. People like him belong behind bars." The case made headlines, and the lecherous director was convicted. The townspeople were outraged that he had worked at the education institution for so many years. Rachel was reinstated at work, and her good name was restored. Most importantly, she was reunited with her son. The woman wept and kissed her little boy without stopping, and he couldn't let go of her embrace either. Meanwhile, Craig eagerly awaited the meeting with his son. He was so absorbed in Rachel's problems that he had completely forgotten about Diana. But she had been watching everything from the sidelines and decided to clarify the situation. "Darling, what's going on? You're always on edge making phone calls and talking about Rachel and her son. Can you explain something to me?" The man couldn't see the young wife's contorted angry face, but he strongly felt the hatred and anger emanating from her. At that moment he realized he no longer wanted to live with her. It was obvious she would never get along with his daughter. Furthermore, Craig didn't really love her that much. It was more of a passion, an obsession that quickly dissipated. Diana had become more and more impudent, taking control of everything in his house and becoming almost uncontrollable, imagining herself as the mistress of everything. Craig sighed heavily and began an unpleasant conversation. "You're right, Diana. We needed to talk seriously for a long time. First, I'll answer your question. Rachel is my first and long-standing love. We studied together at the music school. Then we foolishly broke up. It turned out that she was already pregnant, but didn't even know it yet. She gave birth to a son named Adam. So now I'm the father of 2 children, Lisa and Adam." Diana exploded. "Even better! Are you saying that besides your spoiled daughter there will also be a boy living here? That's terrible. I don't even want my own children yet, and you're pushing someone else's on me." Craig bitterly smiled. "You didn't listen to me, Diana. Our romance spun so fast and quickly that I couldn't even understand anything myself. But the passion quickly faded, and 2 years later we are almost strangers. You don't get along with Lisa, and apparently you're not going to find an approach to her. When I saw Rachel after many years, I realized that I still love her, like in my youth. I understand it's unpleasant for you to hear this now, but I'm not going to lie. Tomorrow I'm going to talk to the doctor about the eye surgery, and then we'll probably have to part ways. Don't worry, I'll leave you the apartment in the residential area and the car I gave you. And then, well, sorry, you're on your own. You'll have to find a job and live like everyone else." Diana jumped up and screamed in a voice not her own. "What a statement! I'm your wife, so half of all your property and business is mine. I'll take everything that's rightfully mine. Ungrateful! I've been living with you for 2 years, putting up with your unbearable daughter. At least you could say thank you. By the way, I'm not going to live with you anymore either. I don't need another burden on my shoulders. I'm only 25 years old, my whole life ahead of me. I want to have fun, enjoy life, not take care of someone else's children and a blind husband." Here, Craig couldn't take it anymore. "So that's how you talk. While I was healthy, giving you gifts, buying you gold, being a good husband, now that I'm disabled, I'm not good enough for you? Well, then we can say goodbye right now. I won't keep you any longer." Diana realized she had said too much and changed tactics. "Honey, wait! Let's stop now. We both got angry and said too much. Let's wait until you get better and recover before we have this unpleasant conversation, okay? Craig, don't rush into surgery. The doctor said a month, not earlier. Otherwise, God forbid, there may be complications. Come to me. I'll kiss you." But it all sounded so insincere and fake that the man just pushed away from his wife and sharply replied, "As you wish. I've said everything. Sorry, I need to listen to the recording of the meeting sent by my deputy." Diana quickly left the man's office, boiling inside with anger. "Ooh, you miserable invalid. He's leaving me an apartment? But what am I supposed to live on? Go work? God forbid. I'm not meant for this. Just wait. I'll get you. You'll remember me for a long time." Craig didn't listen to his wife and decided to consult a professor. Rachel offered to go with him to support him as a friend. It was so touching and pleasant. Carol and Lisa had their after-school activities that day, drawing, sculpting. They came home late and froze. There was a terrible mess in the house. The safe was open and empty, and many expensive things and technology were missing. Carol was scared to death and immediately called the police and Craig. "We have an emergency. Lisa and I just got back, and here it is. You've been robbed. Everything's turned upside down. The safe's open. There's no TV. There were documents on your shelf. Maybe something else. I can't tell right away. I called the police. Come quickly." The man ordered Carol. "Okay, go with Lisa to the children's room. Lock yourselves in and don't open the door for anyone until I get there. I'll be there soon." He immediately forgot about his illness. Craig turned on the camera, recording, and was horrified by what he saw. Diana and the driver Tim were running around the house, grabbing everything in sight: electronics, jewellery, money, and valuable papers. The wife had no idea that there were cameras, so she got angry and shouted, "There you go, hubby. You'll remember me yet." Tim responded with anger. "What a lucky wretch. We couldn't finish him off then, only blinded him. Otherwise, we would have sent Lisa to a shelter and lived here like kings. And where did the patrol come from? They never passed by there before." Diana shouted at Tim to hurry up, since the nanny and Lisa would be back any minute. They needed to sell everything quickly and order tickets to a warm place. Craig was in shock. The police quickly took the fingerprints and rushed to catch a couple of lovers. Craig's daughter hugged and comforted her father. "I told you a long time ago, Daddy, that Diana doesn't love us. She's mean and bad, and you didn't believe me. You'll kick her out now, won't you?" Craig kissed his princess. "You're growing up so fast. Yes, Diana won't be living with us anymore, but I would like to introduce you to a nice woman. Remember when she came to visit us once? Her name is Rachel, and she has a son, Adam. He's your brother. It's a long story. You'll understand when you're older. I really hope you two get along. And Diana and Tim will definitely be punished by the police and sent to prison." The daughter suddenly asked anxiously, "Daddy, what did the doctor say? Will your eyes be able to see again?" Craig answered his daughter, "I'm going for surgery on Monday. You and Carol will be together all the time, and Adam will be with you too. His mother will go with me to the hospital. Please listen to Carol in everything. Be a good girl." The police quickly found the lovers by following the hot trail to Tim's apartment, handcuffed them, and took them to the police station. Now both of them faced a decent sentence for attempting to harm Craig and stealing from him. Diana was in a panic. The grey, damp government walls, the dirty mattress, and the terrible gruel filled her with indescribable horror. Only now did she realize what awaited her. She cried day and night and cursed herself, saying, "Fool! Idiot! Why didn't I just live peacefully? And now what? What did I ever get involved with this Tim? I need to meet with Craig urgently and beg for forgiveness. He's kind, he'll forgive me. I agree to get out of this city as far as possible. Anywhere, as long as it's not prison." Meanwhile, Craig filed for divorce, leaving all the hassle to his lawyer, and went in for surgery. Rachel was by his side. Carol stayed at home with the children. Adam was initially shy and embarrassed, but the lively and restless Lisa quickly befriended him and found a common language. Within a day, he felt at home in the Appletons' house. After school, they always went to visit Craig in the hospital. The operation was successful, and soon the bandage would be removed from his eyes. Everyone was eagerly and anxiously waiting for this moment. During this difficult time, Craig, Rachel, Carol and the children became so close that they truly became one big and friendly team. Lisa and Adam understood that their father was sick and tried not to misbehave or upset him, especially since they always had fun and interesting times with Carol. Finally, Craig was able to wait, and his bandage was carefully removed. Bright light immediately hit his eyes, and he instinctively closed them. Tears streamed down his face. Then he slowly began to open them, and finally saw the world as it was before the tragedy. The doctor examined Craig and was satisfied, ordering him to prepare for discharge. When Craig himself walked out of the office, smiling broadly, and saw Rachel in the hallway, he exclaimed, "My dear, I knew you hadn't changed at all over the years. You just became even more beautiful. The same lips, curls, long eyelashes, and the lock tucked behind your ear. Rachel, you are so beautiful. Finally, I can look at you, admire you every second, and see my son. Thanks to Carol, I will be grateful to her for the rest of my life for playing our melody on the piano. Believe me, I almost fainted. Everything in my soul stirred. You wrote it yourself, Rachel. How happy I am that you have appeared in my life again. I am ready to sell all this business. To hell with it. It has been a thorn in my side. I have earned enough money over the years for my whole family to live comfortably for many years. So let's try to live as you want. In love, peace, enjoying each other, and beloved music. Are you okay with that?" Rachel cried tears of joy and hugged Craig. "You're my little fool. These are the words I was hoping to hear from you back then, you know? I was so upset that you chose money and business over our love and calling to music. Of course I agree. I still love you. Do you remember when we first kissed? You played me the Moonlight Sonata, and then we spent the whole night looking for the Big Dipper in the night sky and passionately kissing. You wrapped me in your jacket and held me gently, hiding me from the rain, and at that moment I was the happiest. Do you believe me? Let's go home. Everyone is waiting for us there." When Lisa saw how confidently her father walked out of the car, she understood that he could see and immediately rushed to him. "Hooray, Daddy! You recovered! I'm so happy! Let's go quickly. We baked you such a cake, you'll love it. Adam and I helped Carol." Adam stood shyly on the sidelines, not daring to approach Craig. They still hadn't talked properly. The man told Lisa to run into the house and approached the boy himself. "Well, hello, son. Finally I see you and can look at you. Well, we look alike. Ears and a smile are definitely mine. You can't deny it. Did your mum tell you that I'm your dad? I'm so upset that I didn't know anything about you before, and 9 years of your life passed me by. But now that we've met, let me be a real father, the closest person. I would really like that. Know that I love you, son. I will never hurt you, and I will always support you in everything." He extended his hand to the boy, and he shook it firmly, and then said quietly, "I'm glad you're with me now, Dad, and I see how Mum is smiling." Craig hugged the boy tightly, pressing him to himself. "Now we will all live with me, as one big family. You seem to have made peace with Lisa. She's your little sister, so stick together, support each other in life. Well, let's go have lunch?" From that day on, the life of the wealthy businessman Craig Appleton changed dramatically. He became an entirely different person. Unexpectedly for everyone, he sold such a successful and prosperous business and threw himself into caring for his family and music. With what pleasure he approached the piano every morning, playing his favourite and long-forgotten melodies. He even took out an old music notebook. Rachel became his personal tutor, and she also taught the children. It turned out great. After all, Rachel and Craig had colossal natural talent. And then they decided to take a risk and open their brainchild, a private music school. The couple got married modestly, not wanting to attract attention to their lives. They had no time for that, as they wouldn't admire and look at each other enough. Only now did Craig realise that all these years he had been living someone else's life. He chose the wrong job, the wrong woman, and had been dragging this burden by inertia. The only thing he did not regret at all was his daughter Lisa. She was his sunshine, a stimulus to live and create all this time. Rachel quickly became friends with Lisa, as she was naturally soft, loved children, and worked at school. Carol was initially afraid that she would be fired, but Craig and Rachel hurried to reassure her. "Don't make it up, Carol. Stay in our house. You are no longer a stranger to us, and the children cannot do without you. Even with just Lisa, it was not boring here, and now there are 2 little brats. Everyone needs to keep an eye on them." All this time, Diana sat in pre-trial detention and prayed for a meeting with Craig. However, he deliberately did not hurry and dragged it out until the end. He wanted to teach her a good lesson to forever discourage her from wanting to steal and cheat. The young woman became thin, and her skin became dull and lifeless. The thought of spending the nearest years in this stuffiness made Diana feel sick, and such despair and longing overwhelmed her. Therefore, when she was told that her ex-husband was ready to meet her, she almost jumped for joy. When the skinny Diana, in a crumpled tracksuit and a greasy bunch of hair on the back of her head, entered the booth for negotiations, he even flinched. So strong was the difference with Diana he knew. She had changed a lot. There was no trace left of her former confidence and impudence. The woman quietly began to plead, tears in her eyes. "Forgive me, Craig, if you can. I know I am to blame for everything. Now I am left with nothing. I beg you, withdraw the statement. I don't want to go to jail. I'm just dying here. I promise I'll leave right away to my mother, and I'll never appear in your life again. Have mercy on me. Forgive me." Craig replied, "I hope jail served as an excellent lesson for you. You won't steal someone else's property anymore, at least not from the hands of the one who feeds you. And you won't kill your next husband either. That plan failed. I see now my vision has fully recovered. Just so you know, Lisa is a wonderful child. She gets along with Carol, Rachel, and her little brother Adam. And it wasn't about her at all. It was about you. You're a wicked, calculating, selfish person who only thinks about your interests. I'll withdraw the statement, but if you ever show up again, you'll definitely end up in jail. I've kept the camera recordings safe." Diana cried and whispered quietly, "Thank you. You're a true human being." The Appleton family lived in peace and harmony, and now many people in the city and their children wanted to attend their music school. Lisa and Adam also played, but the boy chose the guitar and drums, and Lisa still chose the piano. Rachel often composed her own melodies, and Craig wrote poetry, and they had family songs that they all enjoyed singing together. Finally, Craig's life became filled with the meaning he had dreamed of.
It was an especially cold December morning when Stuart got into his car's icy cabin. After starting the engine, he warmed it up a little and drove cautiously onto the nearly empty road. Stuart was on his way to a neighbouring town to make a deal with a new supplier of auto parts for his store. Recently, he had been unlucky with suppliers, so he hoped that this time the negotiations would go well. Thankfully, Stuart was right this time. He was able to agree on shipments that were supposed to start from the new year. After shaking hands with his new partner, he went outside. Delighted with the successful deal, Stuart decided to stop by a store and buy a gift for his wife, Emily. He pulled up near a shopping centre, walked among the many stores, and chose a beautiful watch for Emily with a gold-plated case from an expensive boutique. By the time Stuart left the city, it was already dark and heavy snow had started to fall. Visibility on the road was rapidly deteriorating, and even with the headlights on and the windshield wipers working, it was almost impossible to see anything in the distance. When Stuart drove onto an intersection, he only had time to notice something dark on the left with his peripheral vision. He started to brake, but it was already too late. A heavy logging truck that had jumped onto the highway easily knocked Stuart's car off the road, crushing the driver's side with its huge bumper. "Hey, how are you there? Are you alive?" Stuart struggled to open his eyes and saw through the broken glass the face of an unfamiliar man. The man immediately got busy, tried to open the door, but it didn't budge. Then he ran for a pry bar and, with difficulty, but broke the battered door and, picking Stuart up by the arms, dragged him outside. Stuart gathered his strength, turned his head, looked at his feet, and was horrified that his feet were completely crushed and left bloody tracks in the snow. His last strength left him, and Stuart lost consciousness. He woke up in the hospital. The first thing he did was try to move his toes, and realizing they were gone, moaned in pain and despair. A grey-haired doctor came into the ward, carefully examined his bandaged limbs, and seeing the patient's suffering on his face, said, "Well, calm down, please. It's not as bad as it could have been. You lost a lot of blood, and it's just a miracle that you survived." Emily arrived in the evening, tears in her eyes, as she sat down next to him and took his hand in hers. Stuart looked at her and remembered buying her a watch at the store, and groaned at his own foolishness. "I stopped by the store to buy you a watch. Why couldn't I have just stayed home?" he muttered. "Stuart, everything will be good. Don't worry." His wife tried to reassure him, holding his hand tighter. "What's so good about this? Who needs me now?" Stuart said irritably. "Tell Graham to manage the store himself from now on," he added, turning to the wall. After being discharged, Emily suggested that Stuart live in his late grandfather's old house outside the city, surrounded by nature. Stuart agreed, seeing it as a good idea. Emily packed her husband's things in a suitcase and one more time offered to hire a caregiver for Stuart, but he angrily refused. He got out of bed to show her that he could take care of himself, but a sharp pain in his lower back forced him back onto the bed. Gritting his teeth to keep from screaming in pain, he made another attempt and moved to his wheelchair, showing his wife that he didn't need anyone's help. With a proud look, he left the room. Everything in his grandfather's house was as simple as ever, but beautiful in its own way. Stuart gazed at his grandfather's portrait and suddenly remembered what he was like when he was alive. Although it had been 5 years since his passing, Stuart still vividly remembered his grandpa. He remembered his face, overgrown with stiff bristles, and his old crumpled work shirt, stained with gasoline and tobacco. He wore it all the time, taking it off only for washing. Grandfather died 5 years ago, but Stuart still missed him. These memories took him back to the distant past. He remembered the times when his mother was still alive, before she was diagnosed with cancer. Every morning she used to make him pancakes and carrot fritters, which he loved. It all felt so close now that Stuart completely withdrew into himself and sat in his wheelchair, hypnotized. "Stuart, are you even listening to me?" Emily called out to him. "I might be leaving soon. Don't miss me too much, I'll be back. And call me if you need anything." "Okay," Stuart nodded. "Don't forget about me while you're gone," he joked, but his wife flinched at his words. "How can you say that?" Emily said, offended. Then she kissed her husband goodbye and left quietly. Stuart watched as the heavy door closed behind his wife, and at that moment it seemed to him that he had lost her for the last time. He instinctively jerked forward, but a sharp pain pierced his back, and he, groaning, wearily sank into his wheelchair. A month passed. At first, Emily called Stuart almost every day, inquiring about his health, offering help, but then her calls became less frequent, and finally stopped altogether. Stuart, in a troubled foreboding, tried to reach Emily himself, but her phone did not answer. Stuart guessed that Emily had left him and decided to live her own life, so he soon gave up his attempts to contact her. Deep down he understood his wife, because not everyone can find the strength to take on such a heavy burden as him, but resentment firmly settled in his heart and did not give him peace, neither day nor night. One evening, lost in troubled thoughts, Stuart suddenly heard the gate creak outside. He looked out the window, but it was already quite dark outside, and he didn't see anyone. Thinking that he had imagined it, he was about to immerse himself in his thoughts again, but then he clearly heard a knock on the door. "It's open, come in," Stuart called out, wondering who could come to visit him at this time. The door opened, and to his surprise, Stuart saw his neighbour, Penelope, standing on the threshold. She was petite, slender and modestly dressed. He looked her up and down and gestured for her to sit at the table. The girl walked timidly into the room and sat down opposite. "Hi, Stuart," she said. "I was passing by and saw the lights in the window, so I decided to stop by. How long have you been here?" "It's been a month. I just haven't left the house," Stuart said gloomily as he rolled out from behind the table, demonstrating his wheelchair. "What happened to you?" Penelope exclaimed concernedly. Stuart wearily waved his hand and told Penelope the story. He had barely finished when they heard a noise from outside, and then someone, drunk, started calling out for Penelope rudely. "Is that your stepfather?" Stuart asked. The girl sadly nodded and explained that her stepfather had been drinking heavily for a long time, almost lost his mind, and life with him at home had become unbearable for her. Penelope could have gone to the city to study, but without money it was impossible, and there was nowhere to earn money in the village. Shivering from the cold, Penelope approached the stove to warm her hands and turned to Stuart. "Can I stay with you tonight? I'm scared to go back home. He'll definitely beat me." Stuart nodded and suggested that Penelope choose any place she felt comfortable. While wincing in pain, he approached the stove and removed a pot of potatoes from the burner. Seeing Stuart's anguish, Penelope took the pot from him and helped set the table. "You need to see Mr. Gazzard," she advised. "People come from all over the region to see him. He'll fix your back right away." "That sorcerer," Stuart laughed, recalling old Mr. Gazzard living in the forest. "He's a healer," Penelope corrected him sternly. "Last summer, I dislocated my leg, and he fixed it so well that there wasn't even a trace left." Stuart waved his hand, promising to visit Mr. Gazzard somehow, and suggested Penelope distract herself from the conversation and finally have dinner. A month passed. Penelope visited Stuart every day, helped with the household chores, chatted with him over a cup of tea, and once brought Mr. Gazzard to his place. He immediately examined Stuart, running his fingers over his spine and pressing on one of the vertebrae so hard that Stuart almost passed out. Mr. Gazzard told him to endure a little and repeated his manipulations several more times. "Done," he said, patting Stuart gently on the back. "It won't hurt you any more." Stuart smiled incredulously, but within a few hours he realized that he really felt better. Within a couple of days, he could easily turn his torso, bend and straighten his back, and even while sitting in his wheelchair, he could do housework. He went out to the garden for the first time and put the plot in order, and didn't even feel tired. Returning to the house, he realized for the first time in months that there were pleasant moments in life. But before he could enjoy this new feeling, he was startled by the unexpected sound of the phone ringing. It was Martha, Emily's sister. She struggled to find the right words for a while, but eventually she gathered the courage to tell Stuart that Emily had decided to file for divorce. Stuart was stunned and didn't know what to say. It seemed to him that the remnants of his world had collapsed into an abyss, taking his hope with it. "Why?" he managed to say after a long silence. "They're planning to get married," Martha said, embarrassed. Stuart felt like he couldn't breathe. He asked Martha to call back, and after turning off his phone, threw it into the corner of the room. Slowly, he walked to his grandfather's old chest of drawers, opened the top drawer, and took out an antique straight razor with a beautiful bone handle. Stuart ran his finger along the blade to make sure it was still as sharp as it was years ago and started to think. He imagined himself making just one thin cut and finally getting rid of the pain in his heart. Bitter thoughts, loneliness at night, and endless suffering. Someone knocked on the gate, and fast footsteps approached. Penelope appeared on the threshold with a large bundle in her hands. "Are you out of your mind, Stuart?" she shouted. "Don't even think about it!" she cried, rushing towards him and snatching the razor from his hand. "Why? Why did you want to do that? Everything was so good." "Are you kidding at me? You all say that, but in reality you pity me. What good is it to be without feet and not be able to live my life to the fullest?" he shouted and hit his stumps with all his might. Penelope froze in horror and helplessness, not knowing how to react. Then she suddenly came to her senses and unfolded the bundle she had brought with her. 2 prostheses and crutches fell out onto the floor. "This is what Aunt Helen asked you to deliver," stuttered Penelope, and kneeling down, she attached the prostheses to Stuart's legs. "These are left from her late husband." Penelope helped Stuart to stand up, handed him the crutches, and he, unsteadily moving on his artificial legs, took a few steps. "Well done! See how great it is!" Penelope rejoiced, tenderly observing every movement of Stuart. Stuart walked around the room, took a breather, and approached the girl. "Thank you. It's really not bad at all." He smiled and held Penelope close to him. The girl immediately hugged Stuart by the neck and kissed him. Regaining her senses, she recoiled in fear, but Stuart managed to grab her by the waist, pulled her close, and running his hand through her lush hair, brought the girl's face so close that their lips met again in a hot kiss. That night they spent together, for the first time, as a couple. A week later, Stuart went to the city to divorce his wife and check on the business of the store. The divorce procedure went quickly, and Stuart, dryly saying goodbye to his ex-wife, quickly left the registry office. Emily tried to stop Stuart to ask for forgiveness, but he did not even look at her and walked past, tightly squeezing the crutches. Stuart called a taxi and went to the store. Entering inside, he looked around confusedly. The store was empty. There were some crumpled boxes and old unsold parts lying on the dusty showcases. Stuart approached Graham, bent over the cash register, and hit the floor with a crutch with force. Graham looked up and recoiled in horror. "Stuart, if you're about Emily, then she—" He started speaking nervously. "I'm not interested in those details," Stuart interrupted him. "I came about the store. I see things are not going well." Graham collected all the bills and small coins in the cash register, put them in a bag, and handed them to Stuart. "We need to sell the store," he said. "There are no buyers, no profits, only expenses." "It's not up to you to decide. This is my store, and I will decide what to do with it. And believe me, I can handle this problem," Stuart sharply replied, and left the store without saying goodbye. Stuart was sorry for his business. He had put great effort into this store, but there was nowhere to take the money for investing in it. The only solution could be a loan from the bank, but he doubted that he would be approved. At home he shared his doubts with Penelope, and the girl suddenly, as if remembering something, looked at him with wide-open eyes, and then, asking him to wait a little, ran out onto the street towards her house. She returned in a few minutes and handed Stuart a large black key, clearly of antique workmanship, decorated with intricate carving. "Your grandfather asked me shortly before his death to keep this key and give it to you. I often came to see him, and he always talked about you. He also asked to pass on this key is from the chest that is hidden in the basement. I don't even know what could be there." "Well, okay, we'll see tomorrow," Stuart smiled. On the next morning, Stuart took out a flashlight, handed it to Penelope, and ordered her to follow him. In the kitchen, he lifted the heavy lid of the pantry, carefully descended, and as soon as he reached the ground, he shouted to Penelope to also come down. When they turned on the flashlight, the darkness dissipated, and in the corner they saw traces of brickwork. After dismantling the bricks, they pulled out a small iron chest. The key turned with a creak in the hole. A click sounded, and Penelope gingerly lifted the lid off the chest. Inside was a small bag on a string. Stuart took it, untied it, and poured the contents into his palm. Penelope brought the flashlight closer and froze in amazement. On Stuart's palm, the sharp edges of real precious stones glistened and sparkled with different colors. Penelope and Stuart stood, admiring the incredible and mesmerizing sight, unable to look away, and everything that was happening seemed like a fairy tale dream to them. Having come to his senses, Stuart chose the biggest ruby from the pile of stones and gave it to Penelope. The girl accepted the gift and began to admire it. "You know, I remembered. My grandfather once told me about his youth. He worked in the mines, but I never thought That he hid his findings and kept them for so many years. Stuart took a final look at the exquisite treasure, neatly folded the stones back into the bag and smiled contentedly. He felt confident again and hoped that everything would be fine for them now, as he could use the inheritance to get the store out of debt, improve the business, and buy himself the most modern prothesis. "Will you marry me?" he suddenly asked Penelope. "We will sell the stones, leave here and start a new happy life. Do you agree?" "Of course, my love. If you only knew how long I've been waiting for this," she whispered, and hugging Stuart around the neck, buried her face in his chest. Stuart hugged the girl tightly and realized that all the pain and heaviness of the past few months after the accident was finally leaving. Love helped him forget about despair, betrayal, and disappointment, filling his soul with the long-forgotten feeling of incredible, all-consuming happiness. Nathan was a 40-year-old bachelor who immersed himself in work after his girlfriend's betrayal. Upon returning from the army many years ago, he discovered that Kylie, a sweet and modest girl who promised to wait faithfully and quietly, cried, confessing her eternal love, had married Nathan's best friend, and the couple were already expecting their first child. Although it's a banal story that has happened countless times, Nathan could no longer open his heart to anyone. He was sure that Kylie was not like everyone else and would surely be faithful, but he was wrong. Since then, he had no faith in female loyalty. Nathan sometimes met with charming girls, pleasant to talk to, and spent time with them, but their relationship never went beyond casual meetings. He decided that he would become successful and wealthy, and then Kylie would see what she missed out on. But when his business started going well, and a whirlpool of important matters took over, he completely forgot about his first love. Now all his thoughts were occupied by business deals, meetings, and new projects. However, Kylie knew about Nathan's successes from mutual acquaintances and tried to arrange meetings with him. A couple of times, when she did arrange them, she flirted and said how deeply she regretted not being able to see his potential and missing out on such a man. However, Nathan was not touched by her words at all. On the contrary, it was even unpleasant for him to hear them from someone he once considered a modest innocent. For him, she was just like many others from now on. Things were going quite successfully in Nathan's company, and he didn't need anything else in life. Only sometimes, looking out of the window of his spacious apartment into the street, he envied the proud fathers walking with their little ones. But then, once again, he remembered how painful it was, and told himself that his fate was entirely different. Who knows if he would have achieved such heights if he had tied his life with Kylie? Or maybe he would now be working as a fitter or a turner at a factory, coming back home tired, where screaming children and an angry wife demanding money were waiting for him. No, he was clearly just lucky. This is how Nathan comforted himself every time thoughts of family weighed on his soul. He was engaged in the sale of building materials, had a network of stores throughout the city with products for apartment renovation, and recently opened a small factory for the production of some construction materials. Of course, the main thing in his business is to increase the clientele, and here Nathan was lucky. Mrs. Lane had been working as a customer relations manager for him for 5 years. A woman of retirement age, but very competent and a true professional. Moreover, she was distinguished by enviable sociability and could find a common language with literally every person. Some of Nathan's acquaintances tried to lure Mrs. Lane to their company. Some were surprised that a businessman kept such an elderly employee. But Nathan believed that these people were simply envious of him. He himself was confident that the success of his company depended largely on the efforts of Mrs. Lane, and of course he sometimes wondered what would happen when the woman wanted to leave her job. But it turned out that he fired Mrs. Lane himself, and much earlier. His former classmate, who was now a government official, asked Nathan to hire his niece, Zoe, instead of Mrs. Lane. Nathan probably would have refused right away, but Patrick managed to present his request appropriately. He came to the office of his former classmate with a bottle of expensive cognac and brought along the very Zoe. The girl looked like she had come straight out of a glossy magazine. Slender, long-legged, with a full chest and luxurious blonde hair. In addition, she had several diplomas. She was both an accountant and a customer relations manager, and had studied business etiquette. Customers will flock to such a beauty like bees to honey, even just to see her again, Patrick argued, and he managed to persuade Nathan, who promised Zoe the desired position. The only thing that bothered him was the unpleasant conversation he had to have with Mrs. Lane, but Nathan could not even imagine how difficult it would be. The woman had done nothing wrong, not even worthy of a reprimand. She had always worked impeccably. So when the boss called her in and without preamble announced her dismissal, she could not believe what was happening and kept asking what had happened and what she was guilty of. He lied to her that he cared about her health, and it was time for her to go for a well-deserved rest. Mrs. Lane turned pale and asked for water. Then she begged to be allowed to stay in the company as a janitor at least, but Nathan refused. He did not want to see Mrs. Lane, a highly professional specialist with a mop and bucket every day. It would only remind him that he had acted low and unfairly. Besides, Mrs. Lane would see the new employee and understand that she had been fired only because she was inferior to Zoe in terms of appearance. After hearing the refusal, Mrs. Lane did not ask for anything else, nor did she insist on anything. Nathan indirectly feared that she would go to court and tried to soften his decision, which was so painful for the woman. "Mrs. Lane, you are already on a well-deserved retirement. Live for yourself. As far as I know, you have a good pension, and we will also give you a bonus for years of impeccable service." The woman just waved her hand desperately. After that, she quickly gathered her things and left. This happened on Friday, and on Monday, Zoe replaced Mrs. Lane in the office. Nathan saw that the new employee was trying hard, but not everything was going well for her. He had to explain a lot to her, and it turned out that she was not used to working so much. Mrs. Lane could easily stay after work if it was convenient for a client to come to their company in the evening. For Zoe, the need to sacrifice her personal time turned out to be an unpleasant surprise. Every free minute she tried to spend on herself. She would start painting her nails, then choose a blouse online, then chat on the phone with someone. Sales had begun to decline noticeably. Nathan had already made remarks to Zoe more than once, but when he entered the office, she smiled enchantingly at him, and her neckline was so revealing that he involuntarily bit his tongue. Several months passed. One day, Nathan took home to sort out some critical documents. When he came out of the entryway the next morning with his briefcase, hooligans suddenly ran up to him and started beating him. They were tall and strong and wore hooded jackets. Nathan didn't have time to examine their faces because he immediately fell. In his heart, Nathan hoped that the thugs would take his wallet with the money and leave. But the guys didn't limit themselves to the pack of bills they found on him. They also grabbed his briefcase and then fled.
Nathan tried to get up, feeling for his glasses on the asphalt. Suddenly, he heard a male scream. "Oh, damn it!" Then came the sound of falling. Finally, putting on his glasses, Nathan saw that one of his attackers apparently slipped on something while running under the arch, and now his injured leg was making it difficult for him to rise. And the other bandit was hit on the head by a woman in a scarf and a cotton jacket. Nathan could not believe his eyes. Meanwhile, the woman hurried to him. "Nathan, are you okay? Let me call an ambulance," a familiar voice said, and he recognized Mrs. Lane. "Mrs. Lane, but how did you manage?" he could only ask. Mrs. Lane smiled. "As soon as I noticed they start beating you, I was confused at first, but I immediately called security, and then I saw these scoundrels were running in my direction. Well, I threw the bucket at their feet. One of them stumbled over it, and the second I have already given a bottle on the head. I don't even know how I had the courage. And now you're—" Nathan looked at his former colleague, saw that she had lost a lot of weight, and her clothes were strange. "I work as a janitor now," said Mrs. Lane. "But why? Isn't your pension enough?" Nathan blushed. "I really need the money," explained Mrs. Lane without going into details. And then the security arrived. Nathan did not let the matter slide. If the robbers had only taken his wallet, there would be no questions, but they had clearly needed the documents in his portfolio for a reason. Nathan hired a private detective and spared no expense for the investigation. When he learned the results, he was shocked. It turned out that his old friend, who was the mayor's right-hand man, was behind the whole plot. Together with his relative, Patrick, he wanted to deprive Nathan of his company, which brought in large profits. Naturally, Nathan immediately showed Zoe the door. The girl tried to justify herself, pretending that she was in no way involved in all this and had no idea about her uncle's plans. But Nathan warned her she should be glad that he decided not to take the matter to court. After that, he went to Mrs. Lane's house. He wanted to ask for forgiveness and invite the woman back to work. Nathan brought a bottle of good wine, a luxurious bouquet of roses, and compensation for moral damage in an envelope. Mrs. Lane lived nearby, but she was not at home. Nathan pressed the doorbell for a long time and was about to leave when he heard someone respond, "Wait, I'll open it now." A few minutes later the door opened. A young woman in a wheelchair stood before Nathan. In the semi-darkness of the hallway, he did not immediately make out her face. "Sorry for making you wait," she apologized. "I didn't think anyone would come today, so I was in bed. It took me a while to get dressed and make it to the door." "You forgive me?" Nathan stuttered. "I dropped in uninvited to see Mrs. Lane, but I see she is not at home. Mum will be here soon from her second job." "Can I wait for her?" "Of course, I'll put the kettle on, and you can go to the living room." While the girl was busy in the kitchen, Nathan sat in an armchair and looked around. He knew that Mrs. Lane was receiving a good salary, but her home environment was poor, if not downright impoverished. The furniture was probably 20 years old, painted wooden floors. However, the house was impeccably clean. That was immediately noticeable. Suddenly, Nathan wondered how the girl would manage by herself in the kitchen and rushed in to help her. They introduced themselves to each other. The girl's name was Amy, and Nathan noticed that she was beautiful, but very skinny and pale. They had just sat down to have tea when Mrs. Lane returned. Upon seeing her former boss, she couldn't hide her surprise. "Nathan? It's the first time you're visiting me. What brings you here?" Nathan confusedly began to mumble something unintelligible, but Mrs. Lane understood that he was asking for forgiveness. "Oh, come on," she waved her hand. "It's obvious to me. Any man would prefer a younger, more beautiful woman than an old maid like me. And there wouldn't have to be any problem if she had been a good specialist instead of a mediocre fraudster." Nathan sighed. "You see how fate has taught me a lesson. I could have easily lost everything. And I already lost a lot when I fired you. Clients started leaving. Revenues were falling. I would really like if you came back. If, of course, you forgive me." Mrs. Lane looked him straight in the eye. "Honestly, I don't know what to say, Nathan. My daughter Amy has serious problems with her spine. Everything I earned always went towards her treatment. Sometimes it wasn't enough and I had to take out loans. I'm still paying off one now. I know I can work as a janitor or a cleaner as much as my strength allows. No one will fire me. But in your and other companies, it's a real swing. One day you're valued, the next day you're kicked out for nothing. I can't afford all these ups and downs." Perhaps Nathan had never been so ashamed in his life. "Please, think about it some more," he asked Mrs. Lane. And with that he bowed and left. In the next few days he paid off Mrs. Lane's loan to the bank, asking that his name not be revealed to her, just some benefactor who wanted to do a good deed. He also found a clinic where Amy was being treated, talked to the doctors. She needed an expensive operation. If it went well, Amy would almost certainly be able to walk again. Nathan said that there was no need to wait for quotas. He would pay for everything. He found out the details and wrote a check for the necessary amount. On the same day, Mrs. Lane called him. She could not hide her tears of happiness, as she understood who played the role of the benefactor. Mrs. Lane reported that she would stay with Amy for the first time after the surgery, and as soon as her daughter felt better, she would immediately start working. The operation was successful. Nathan often visited the woman in the clinic, brought her flowers and fruits, and rejoiced that everything was going well. He himself did not notice that he was becoming increasingly attached to Amy, and his heart quickly opened up to this cute, modest, and smart woman. He stayed in the ward for a long time, talking about all sorts of nonsense like a schoolboy in love. When Amy began to get up and take her first timid steps, Nathan was always there to support her. On the day when Amy was discharged from the clinic, Nathan proposed to her, and the girl replied with consent. They had a modest wedding, as the bride still had a long period of rehabilitation ahead of her. Instead of a honeymoon, the young couple went to a good sanatorium in Germany. Mrs. Lane no longer worked as a cleaner, but returned to the company she had put so much effort into. She not only negotiated with the most important clients, but also taught young managers this art. Getting knowledge at the university is one thing, but practice is quite another. Nathan kept his word and never went to court against Patrick. However, a few months later the official was dismissed from his post, and a criminal case was opened against him for another reason. He had too much debt and had to return the money to very serious people. Patrick was an avid gambler and spent any amount that came into his hands. To pay off, he was even ready to commit a crime. It didn't work out with Nathan. He got into the state treasury, took out what did not belong to him. Soon Patrick was tried, given a sentence, and his property was confiscated. Zoe now had to seriously look for a job. Fortunately, some kind-hearted acquaintance placed her in the accounting department of an enterprise. But in the woman's team, the girl's charms could no longer interest anyone. Nathan told his wife and mother-in-law about all this over dinner, and then apologized again to Mrs. Lane. Mary looked at her watch, becoming increasingly nervous with each passing second. Her baby was supposed to be brought to her for feeding half an hour ago, but no one had come yet. She could hear other mothers' babies being brought to them, but where was her daughter? The woman was worried, couldn't find her place. It seemed as if someone had pulled her heart out of her chest and was now trying diligently to tear it apart. "They will bring your beautiful daughter. She won't disappear. Don't worry so much," tried to calm her down the neighbour in the ward. But her words did not calm Mary down. It was easy for her to say. Her baby was right next to her, and they were not separated. Mary could not get enough of her long-awaited daughter. The thought that she was far away was driving her crazy. The neighbour even laughed, telling Mary to rest while she could, instead of pacing around the ward. But something was pushing in her chest, warning of something bad. Maybe her intuition was trying to protect her from something. Mary's daughter was taken away again because she had high levels of bilirubin in her blood. She needed phototherapy sessions. The doctors said they would shine the lamp one last time and not separate her from her mother anymore. Unable to stand her anxiety, Mary approached the nurse, but she looked away strangely and told her to wait. Mary's heart was beating faster and faster. She barely held back tears. And when the doctor came, he whispered that the little Diana had disappeared. Mary fainted in the next second. How could they lose a baby in the maternity ward? Where would she have gone from there? When Mary came to, she thought it was some kind of cruel joke, but she realized it was not. Fate had been unfair to them. They searched for her daughter everywhere, literally turning the maternity ward upside down. Mary's husband arrived as soon as she returned to a more or less normal state and was able to tell him the terrible news. All the staff at the maternity ward checked every corner, but the little girl was nowhere to be found. The only conclusion that came to mind was that the baby had been kidnapped. Mary couldn't understand. Who would need to kidnap her baby? She didn't have millions. Her husband was just a simple worker, and she worked as a journalist at the local newspaper before taking maternity leave. Did someone decide to take revenge for a wrong article? Doctors and police closed all entrances and exits and began to check all the staff and patients in the maternity ward. The policeman considered initiating a murder case. What if one of the nurses accidentally killed the baby and, scared, tried to get rid of her? No, Mary didn't allow herself to think about that, as she could go crazy with despair. As long as there was hope in her chest, living was much easier. The doctors prescribed sedatives to Mary to calm her down a little, but no tablets could heal the wounds on her soul, get rid of the grief that tore her heart into pieces. Mary thought and thought, but nothing came to mind. The police managed to identify the only suspect. It turned out to be a 30-year-old midwife named Alana. The motives for kidnapping the child were of course not understood by anyone, but the woman did not appear at work for 3 days after the incident, so they began to search for her. Her neighbours knew nothing about Alana, saying that 4 days ago the woman sold her apartment in a hurry for practically nothing and said goodbye to them. They all thought that she had finally found happiness in life, moved to another city, as no one had ever seen her as happy as on the day of departure. Alana was characterized differently. Someone said that she was good, responsible, executive, that she had a huge, pure soul, and someone frowned and said that Alana was always closed, alienated, nervous. In general, people's opinions differed. But they couldn't say anything bad about the woman. She drank alcohol like everyone else on holidays. She didn't have an addiction to illegal stuff. She didn't steal, didn't fight, wasn't involved in brawls, and she wasn't on the register of the psychiatric hospital. Alana's mother died 5 years ago, and her ex-husband refused to meet with the police. He said that he already had another family and didn't know anything about his ex-wife. The police couldn't force the man to talk, but it was unlikely that he would cover his ex-wife. However, the police established surveillance of the man to make sure that he really did not hide anything, did not cover the criminal. Unfortunately, surveillance did not give anything. The man was as clean as a whistle, and he really had nothing to do with Alana. Mary felt like a part of her soul was dying with each passing day. Of course, hope always remains until the last, but the woman did not know where to look for her daughter. But now Mary regretted allowing the child to be taken away. She should have sat there next to her daughter, watching over her. Every day Mary's husband would start drinking, sometimes blacking out completely. He attempted to control himself, but occasionally he would break down and accuse her of everything. He blamed her that she didn't protect their child, that she should have been by their daughter's side during procedures instead of lying in the ward and resting. When Lance was in a better state, he was always supportive of his wife. He knew that only together they could cope with the pain, but he couldn't control himself when he was overwhelmed by thoughts of their daughter not being alive anymore. At first, Mary didn't pay attention to these reproaches and accusations, but soon she began to take them to heart. She should have checked on little Diana instead of falling asleep. However, no one could say for certain what would have happened if they had gone back in time. Perhaps it was fate. Perhaps their daughter would have disappeared under other circumstances. Perhaps Mary didn't deserve to be a mother. She blamed herself and swallowed sedatives, sometimes sinking into a bitter unconsciousness. She would sit and stare at one spot for days on end. Lance tried to talk to his wife and encourage her to be more active. He suggested she started writing articles for her newspaper, but it seemed to him like he was talking to a wall. He tried to support her, but gave up under the weight of everyday life, looking into her glassy eyes. He allowed despair to overwhelm him and turned to the bottle, thinking it was his salvation, but instead he started drowning in it. Alana, the midwife who kidnapped Mary's daughter, could not be happier with her cleverness. After all, she finally achieved what she had been dreaming of for so long, becoming a mother. Holding the tiny crying baby wrapped in a blanket close to her, the woman tried to understand the raging excitement. She just couldn't believe her luck, how easy and fast everything had worked out for her. Nobody even suspected anything. And if they found out now what she had done, they wouldn't be able to find her, because she had escaped far away, too far away, and here in this God-forsaken place, nobody would dare to disturb her happiness. Alana had prepared everything in advance, buying baby clothes, a crib, formula, and plenty of powdered milk, which she periodically replenished. The hastily renovated, abandoned forester's house near the dying village became a perfect place to hide. Getting to the village was not that far away, and it was there that Alana decided to buy groceries when they ran out. After all, nothing terrible would happen to the child if she left her alone for 2 or 3 hours. But the woman didn't have time to think about what would happen when the baby grew up a little. She decided that she would solve all problems as they arise. And one day, during Mary's delivery, Alana realized that the time had come. She herself did not know why she was drawn to this particular child, but she was waiting for just such a moment, a sign from above. And when they took the baby for procedures once again and left her alone for a while, Alana committed this terrible act. She couldn't be happier with the genius of her plan. The woman understood that she wouldn't be able to adopt a baby from the orphanage because there are already long queues for them, and they prefer full families. But after an unsuccessful first marriage, Alana didn't plan to start a family. She decided that the baby, whom the heavens would surely send her, would become her family. And then she saw Diana and realized that this was the sign she had been waiting for so long. At first, Alana couldn't get enough of the baby. As soon as this little girl was born, the woman immediately felt a kindred soul in her. Her heart chose her. Coping with the role of a mother turned out to be not easy at all, but Alana lived as if on one breath. She fluttered like a butterfly and enjoyed these incredible feelings. But the feeling of euphoria had to pass someday. The woman's thoughts of what her life could have been like without this child, the realization that it is not her baby and may never become her own, and the belief that this act was wrong finally began driving her insane. Alana became afraid of every sound and rustle. If there was a strong wind outside, she flinched at the sound of branches hitting the window, fearing that someone had finally found her and come for the baby. Her happiness quickly turned into hellish torment, her heart tearing into pieces. Alana looked at the baby, but no longer felt like her mother. It was a stranger's child. The woman even began to feel the depression that usually happens to new mothers. Alana didn't know what to do with the baby next. Looking at the crying baby, begging for food, Alana grew angry with her from time to time. Sometimes she would go to the village for groceries for 5 hours, if not more. She understood perfectly well that when she returned, she would again experience that oppressive feeling of loneliness and all-consuming void. The child had become annoying, and something urgent needed to be done. Alana lost a lot of weight and turned into a real shadow. She hated herself and her life, constantly thinking about how everything could have turned out differently. She realized that she was tired of being a mother. She no longer wanted to change the little girl's diapers, and there was no money left for them. She didn't want to feed her, and she no longer wanted to listen to the endless, maddening, non-stop crying. Everything was just too much. And then Alana made up her mind. She wrapped the child in an old cloth, hitchhiked to the city, and then went to the address where the baby's mother was supposed to live. The woman did not know why she memorized the address. She just remembered it, and that was it. Alana was afraid of getting caught by the police on the way, and going to jail was the last thing she wanted. And she sincerely hoped that by returning the child to her mother, she could continue to live as she had before. After all, she was doing just fine before that. Well, things didn't work out with her beloved man, but the sun didn't revolve around him. Well, she didn't have a child, and he already had a full-fledged family, so what? Not a big deal. Dragging herself from the bus stop to the entrance, angry at her uncomfortable shoes that rubbed her feet raw, the hungry girl's cries and everything around her, Alana was ready to throw the baby away, leave her on a bench, do anything just to get rid of her company as soon as possible. Alana fondly remembered her wedding with her beloved husband. They were happy together until a couple of months after the wedding, when Alana found out she was pregnant. The young couple was overjoyed, but the birth was difficult, and the baby never cried. Then Alana literally went crazy. Her head was spinning, all thoughts were confused in her mind. She wanted to howl with grief. The couple began to actively try to conceive a child, but nothing worked. Alana was examined and received a disappointing diagnosis: infertility. She refused to accept this and didn't tell her husband the truth. They actively tried to conceive a child again and again, but to no avail. One day, her husband discovered the examination results hidden in the attic, including the doctor's conclusion. He didn't talk to his wife for long, just twiddled his finger at his temple and said that Alana had become obsessed. He left her, and Alana continued to unsuccessfully try to conceive a child. She met many other men, but failed to find someone who could father her child. She even attempted to adopt a baby, but was rejected. Then one day, Alana made a terrible decision, stealing a baby she considered her own. But of course, she didn't think of many things, and most importantly, that she isn't able to love someone else's baby. After searching for the correct entrance for a long time, Alana finally found it and hurried inside when an elderly couple came out. Once in the second floor, she pressed the doorbell button and waited for someone to answer. Mary opened the door, and Alana didn't immediately recognize her, as both women had changed drastically in the last 6 months, and not for the better. Without giving Mary a chance to react, Alana handed her the baby, saying, "Take your daughter back. I don't need her anymore. I'm tired of her." Mary was stunned, holding the baby in her arms, but not understanding what had just happened. She didn't know who this woman was or why she had given her the baby. While Mary was still trying to process everything, Alana hurriedly left, not giving Mary a chance to ask any questions. Once the door was closed, Mary stared at the baby, trying to understand what kind of cruel fate had brought her here. She had not been expecting anyone to visit, as her husband had left her just a few hours before, telling her that he was tired of her depression and that she should live alone if she continued to hope of getting her child back, who was probably long dead. The relationship with her husband had become too tense over these 6 months, and Mary was even glad that he had decided to leave, thinking that at least he could continue to live and start a new life, unlike her. When she heard the doorbell ring, Mary thought it was her husband, but it was not him. Now she didn't even know what to do with this strange gift. After a minute of shock, Mary put the baby on the bed and called her husband. "What do you want from me?" the man asked in a rough voice. "Lance, I don't know what to do. She just brought me a baby and said it's our daughter. Lance, please, help me." "Are you out of your mind, trying to manipulate me by using a child? Mary, stop raving about that child. Enough with this nonsense." "Lance, you don't understand." Without letting his wife speak, the man hung up and turned off his phone. Mary panicked and decided to call her mother. Though shocked by her daughter's words, the woman promised to come quickly since she lived nearby. The baby started to cry, and Mary, feeling lost, picked her up. She didn't know how to handle a baby, what to do with her, or how to approach her. Soon after, Mary's mother arrived. She was dumbfounded when she saw the child and realized that her daughter was not really crazy. However, she quickly pulled herself together and stated that the child was hungry. The woman went to the nearest store to buy food and clothes for the baby, since the careless mother hadn't left any. When she returned, she handed Mary a box of formula and instructed her on how to prepare it. "Boil the bottle to make sure everything is sterile," she added. Mary's mother then tended to the crying baby. "Who is this little one we have here? You'll be eating in a couple of minutes, and meanwhile, let's put a diaper on you. You're wet. We'll take care of everything now, and then we'll look for your poor mommy. We'll figure out what happened to you, my little bun. Although you're such a skinny bun, like a herring. But that's okay. We'll fatten you up." The woman turned the baby over and was shocked by how many diaper rashes there were. Her heart was bleeding, as if someone was tirelessly puncturing it with a dull knife. "Mary, come here. Do you have a big towel? We'll wrap this beauty. We'll have to bathe her and put baby oil all over her." Mary walked over and glanced at the baby. Her heart almost stopped when her gaze fell on a small, almost imperceptible birthmark on the girl's left shoulder. "Mum, this is definitely my Diana!" Mary gasped, tears streaming down her cheeks. "The birthmark is just like Lance's. Remember, I took a picture of it when she was born. This is our Diana." Mary began to cry, and surprisingly, the baby calmed down. After cleaning the baby, Mary didn't let go of her, constantly hugging and kissing her. She was afraid to let go of the baby and lose her again. It all felt like a strange dream, a nightmarish twist of fate. But even if it was a dream, she didn't want to wake up. "We need to buy panthenol ointment. I'll go to the store again, and you watch the little girl for now." "Can you believe this? I still can't," Mary's mother wailed and quickly left. Everyone was in shock from the intense emotions. No one could fully comprehend what was happening. It was necessary to contact the police and do a DNA test, just in case. However, even without the test, it was clear that it was Diana, who was cruelly taken away from her mother and now was returned. Mary was incredibly happy. Her daughter was alive and had returned to her. Mary was angry at Alana, but she was happy that she returned the child to her instead of throwing her on the street or leaving her to die. Lance was walking down the street slowly. He felt a burning hatred towards himself, tears streaming down his cheeks, and the best moments of his life with Mary kept flashing before his eyes. He still loved his wife, but he was tired of looking at the woman who was killed by grief. He was angry. He thought he was angry at her, but he was angry at himself. And now, after her call, the man could not find a place for himself. For the umpteenth time, he opened a photo of his daughter on his phone, the one that his wife sent after the baby's birth. Because of the tears that blurred his vision, he could hardly see anything. Deciding that he simply had to return and talk to his wife again and try to convince her that they needed to move on, Lance turned around. He suddenly got afraid that Mary would do something to herself if she lost him too, and he himself could not imagine a life which she would not be there either. Yes, he had made many mistakes. They both did many bad things, said nasty things to each other, but their love was much stronger. Lance thought that Mary's condition had worsened if she called and said that they brought her some child. He had to be with his wife in this difficult moment. He had to support her and not allow her to go crazy. Lance decided that he would fight for what was between them before. After all, they promised each other not to leave each other in sorrow or joy until death do them part. The man hurried. He became scared at the mere thought that it would be too late. After reaching the required floor, Lance rang the doorbell. Mary did not open it for a long time, and he was frightened. The man began to search his pockets for keys. His hands were shaking, and the most terrible pictures of what could happen to his wife kept appearing in front of his eyes. However, the door opened, and Lance grabbed his wife in his arms and pressed her to himself, tears streaming down his face. Mary was stunned in his embrace and burst into bitter sobs. The man's heart was ready to stop in his chest. "Forgive me, Mary, forgive me. I shouldn't have left. I promised that we would cope with everything together in sorrow and in joy. Mary, forgive me. Together we will cope with all this. Do you hear me? We will cope with all this." Lance kept apologizing, kissing his wife's tear-streaked cheeks. A woman was unable to answer anything because she heard a baby crying from the bedroom. Lance was frozen in place, unable to believe his own ears. He hurried into the bedroom and saw the little one wrapped in his towel. The man barely kept himself on his feet. It was his daughter, Diana. Lance recognized her immediately. After all, she was his exact copy. He remembered perfectly all his childhood photos. The man fell to his knees and started crying. It didn't matter how the daughter returned. The main thing was that she was home and alive. Only in the evening, when the grandmother was taking care of the granddaughter, healing her rashes from diaper rash, did the spouses call the police. Alana was caught at midnight that same day. The woman aimlessly wandered around the central square and did not even try to hide. Since she immediately behaved inadequately, she was sent to a psychiatric hospital, and a few months later, during a court hearing, she was assigned to compulsory treatment for several years. The relationship between Mary and Lance was restored and became stronger than before. They never let their daughter go, even for a couple of meters. They guarded her like the most precious treasure in life and surrounded her with care and love. They understood that someday their daughter would fly out of the family nest, but for now she was too small and defenseless, so the spouses protected her as the apple of their eye. 2 years later, they had a son. At that time, Mary gave birth together with her husband, who was in the delivery room. It was difficult to let go of the fears of the past, but the spouses worked on themselves, went to a family psychologist, and tried not to overshadow the lives of their children with their problems. Alana slowly came to her senses. She realized how terrible and wrong her actions were. The woman repented and asked for forgiveness from God. Now she dreamed of bringing at least some benefit to the world.
"What are you doing? Help!" shouted Alison when she saw 2 strong men beating up a young man. Her cry attracted the attention of people around, and the attackers fled down a dark alley. Alison rushed to the young man lying on the ground. After a quick examination and a few questions, she breathed a sigh of relief. The stranger was conscious
and although he was breathing heavily, he seemed to have no serious injuries. "Why did they do this to you?" she asked, helping the stranger to his feet. "I have no idea," he smiled. "By the way, my name is Kevin. And you, my beautiful saviour? You must be a doctor. You examined me so professionally." "I'm Alison, and yes, you're almost right, I'm a nurse. I work nearby at the hospital." Alison suggested that Kevin come with her to the hospital to see the on-duty traumatologist and make sure there were no injuries. There, he was given a painkiller, an X-ray was taken, and after confirming that everything was okay, he was sent home. The next day, Kevin invited Alison to celebrate his miraculous rescue. They sat in a cafe, drank tea, and chatted. Kevin couldn't stop thanking the girl for her courage and kindness, which helped him avoid serious injuries. He showered her with compliments and jokes. Alison was pleased and flattered by the attention of such a handsome guy. However, in the morning, she had to rush to work, so she started getting ready to go home. Kevin understood that he had unintentionally kept the girl, and to compensate for the inconvenience, he immediately called her a taxi. Alison sat in the car thinking she would never see Kevin again, so she was surprised when he showed up the next day after work with a huge bouquet of flowers. He invited her to dinner, and though Alison was tired after a hard shift, she agreed. She liked Kevin and wanted to continue seeing him. From then on, Kevin often met Alison after work, and after 3 weeks, he moved into her small apartment. Alison had been living alone since her mother's death, and while her mother was sick, Alison didn't have time for her personal life. And now she finally felt an irresistible desire to live and start a family. 2 weeks later, Alison realized she was pregnant. Kevin didn't refuse to marry her, but explained he wanted to find a good job, earn money, and then propose to her properly and have a grand wedding. Although she wanted a white dress and a beautiful celebration, she considered Kevin's arguments reasonable and decided to discuss the issue later. Alison found Kevin a good job through her acquaintances. Soon he began earning well, and Alison believed their plans could soon come true. She dreamed of living in a big house, buying a car, getting a dog, and having a child who would play with the dog all day. To help Kevin, she worked until the very delivery. With work and worries, Alison didn't immediately notice how Kevin had changed. He distanced himself, came home late, and became abrupt and irritable. Alison was already 8 months pregnant when Kevin came home late one day, heavily intoxicated, and they had their first argument. "Why are you so late, Kevin? I'm worried," Alison asked. "And why are you in such a state?" "Yes, I'm drunk, so what?" Kevin shouted. "I'm sick of your reproaches and your perpetually dissatisfied face. I'll do what I want, and when I want, got it?" Alison couldn't believe what she was hearing. She had never once reproached Kevin, even when he came home smelling of another woman's perfume and was rude about everything. Alison warned Kevin that if he didn't stop behaving this way, he would have to leave her home. In response, she received a powerful blow that sent her flying into the wall. "I don't want to hear any more of it. Got it?" Kevin repeated. "I'll say it again. I'll do what I want. And you just be quiet." Alison sat on the floor and cried. Her cheek burned from the blow, and when she fell, she hit her back, causing pulling pains in her stomach. Kevin ignored her condition, passed her by, and fell asleep right on the couch in his shoes. But Alison couldn't fall asleep. She realized that she didn't know Kevin well enough and had no idea what to do now. She had never kept an eye on him, thinking that relationships should be built on trust. But after tonight's events, she was unable to resist the urge to check Kevin's phone. She quickly found revealing messages with different casual acquaintances, intimate photos, and a separate folder with videos and correspondence with a woman much older than him. Reading the messages, Alison realized that Kevin had been cheating on her for a long time. The woman finally realized that she couldn't have a future with this man. She didn't dare wake him up and discuss their relationship further, fearing repeated beatings, and waited for the morning. In the morning, Kevin silently had breakfast and went to work as if nothing had happened. As soon as he left, Alison called her friend Lena for help. Lena immediately came over and helped pack Kevin's things, which they put outside the door. Then they moved Alison's most essential things to Lena's house and called a locksmith to change the locks. Alison didn't say anything to Kevin and just closed the apartment, leaving to her friend. That evening, an angry Kevin called, trying to understand why his things were outside the door and why his key didn't work. "Kevin, do you really not remember what you did yesterday? Forget about me and the child. I don't want to see you anymore," said Alison. "How dare you?" shouted Kevin. "Do you think you can scare me by taking away the child? Believe me, you will regret it."
After hearing insults and threats, Alison realized she had made the right decision. She stayed with a friend until her son was born and then decided to return home. Raising her baby boy, Sam, wasn't easy, but her friends often visited and tried to help as much as they could. Alison adored her son and constantly imagined how he would grow up, play with friends, and make her many pleasant and heartwarming worries as a mother. She didn't feel lonely at all and was grateful to people who were willing to help her in difficult times. When Sam turned 1, Alison went back to work and her elderly neighbour, Mrs. Marshall, happily agreed to babysit. Mrs. Marshall's grandchildren had grown up, and now she enjoyed babysitting Sam like a real grandmother. Kevin never showed up during this time, and Alison was glad that no one was disturbing their calm and peaceful life. However, one day everything changed. "Alison, it's trouble!" the neighbour sobbed on the phone. "Sam is missing! I've already called the police." Alison hurried home, frantic and unable to comprehend how her 1.5-year-old baby could have disappeared. As she approached the house, she saw a patrol car already there, and Mrs. Marshall, sobbing and clutching her chest, was recounting the details of what had happened. From what Alison understood, Mrs. Marshall had been walking with Sam near the playground and had briefly stepped away, entrusting the stroller with the sleeping baby to some of the neighbouring boys. She had only gone for a few minutes, but when she returned, the stroller was empty, and the boys were nowhere to be found. Alison stared in horror at the empty stroller and felt her strength leaving her. She felt sick and passed out. Sam was never found. The boys who were supposed to watch the child admitted they were playing hide-and-seek and weren't paying much attention to him. When they realized that the baby was missing, they panicked and ran away. However, one of them remembered seeing an unfamiliar car with tinted windows parked near the playground. It appears that these people stole Sam. Having waited for the right opportunity, Alison asked to check on the child's father, but it turned out that he had already left their town. Alison cried for days and was unable to even get out of bed. She had to leave her job at the hospital to avoid sympathetic looks from colleagues.
It had been a year, but Alison never received news about her son. She decided to leave the city for the capital, where she was offered a job as a caregiver in a wealthy household. Mrs. Fitz, an intelligent elderly lady, hired her to take care for her grandson Peter, who was confined to a wheelchair after an accident. Deeply saddened by his misfortune, the young man was constantly in a depressed mood and didn't want to communicate with anyone. "Alison, you're such a kind and sweet girl. Try to engage Peter in conversation. Spend time with him. Maybe it'll work. It pains me to see him so gloomy and withdrawn." Alison herself felt sorry for the young man and tried to provide him with not only medical care but also moral support. She asked him genuine questions about his years spent abroad, travels, favourite books and movies, and music, in an attempt to evoke pleasant memories. At the same time, she acted carefully so as not to remind Peter of the things that were inaccessible to him now. Gradually, the young man got used to her presence, became more talkative and open, and began feeling a genuine interest in sharing his stories. Alison treated Peter warmly and felt that she was no longer just working in the house, but was gradually becoming a member of the family. Alison treated Peter warmly and felt that she was no longer just working in the house, but was gradually becoming a member of their family. Mrs. Fitz was deeply grateful for everything that Alison had done for her grandson. Thanks to her efforts, the young man had once again experienced the joy of life and begun to smile. "Alison, you have done wonders. Yesterday Peter asked me to find him a good rehabilitation specialist. He wants to fight for himself and stand on his feet again," Mrs. Fitz said, almost in tears of happiness. While cleaning Peter's room one day, Alison came across an album of photographs that she had never seen before. Peter noticed her interest and explained that the album contained pictures from his past life when he was healthy. Although he had avoided looking at them for some time and even considered throwing them away, he decided to show Alison the places he had talked about so much. Alison sat next to Peter and they started looking through photos together. Peter looked open, cheerful and happy in them, which made Alison feel sad that he was deprived of all that now. Among the photos were some from family holidays and celebrations. Alison stopped at a photo from Mrs. Fitz's anniversary and froze. Many guests were in the photo, but only one couple caught her attention. "That's my grandmother's anniversary. I think it was 2 years ago, before the accident," commented Peter, noticing Alison's interest in the photo. He started telling a funny story that happened at the celebration, but Alison hardly listened. She was looking at the photo, her heart beating wildly and her mouth dry. Trying to breathe evenly, the girl closed her eyes for a second. When she opened them again, she saw Kevin with a rather mature, elegant woman, the same one whose photo and correspondence she had seen on his phone. Most importantly, Kevin was holding a boy, and it was her Sam. "This is my son, Sam," she whispered, looking intently at Peter. "Do you know these people? Who is the man in this photo?" "Son?" Peter asked incredulously, still trying to make sense of what was happening. "No, there were many people I didn't know, but my grandma should know." Alison grabbed the album and rushed to Mrs. Fitz with tears in her eyes and begging her to identify the people in the photo. Mrs. Fitz looked at the photo and told her that the woman next to Kevin was named Lisa, and she was a friend of Mrs. Fitz's deceased daughter. "We used to be friends with her family, and a couple of years ago, Lisa married this young man. As far as I remember, it's her child." "No, that's my Sam!" Alison burst into tears. "This man, Kevin, stole him from me a few years ago." Mrs. Fitz was shocked by the girl's words. She asked her to tell the story from beginning to end and promised to do everything to help. After Alison finished her story, Mrs. Fitz and Peter were deeply moved and immediately called their lawyer and the police. As it turned out later, Kevin had indeed taken away Sam and left town with him. Before that, he had been dating a wealthy widow much older than him. Presenting himself as a caring single father, raising his son alone, he quickly won the woman over to the point where she agreed to marry him. The wretch got everything he dreamed of: money, status, and a carefree life, but he never expected the police to come after him so soon. Kevin was arrested, and Sam was taken and handed over to his mother. Lisa refused to defend her husband after learning what a cruel deceiver he turned out to be. Alison stayed in Peter's house. He worked hard on himself and eventually overcame his illness and regained his footing. A year later, he was standing on his feet, albeit leaning on a crutch, at his own wedding and hugging Alison. Peter adopted Sam, and a few years later they all travelled together. He himself was able to show the boy all the places he had told to his mother so much about. Miles was standing at the grave, looking at his wife's picture. Life is unpredictable, he thought. Most of the time we make mistakes, and the rest of the time we try to correct them. He and Nicole met 20 years ago. They were in love, and even thought they would be together for life. But then, when Miles was about to propose to Nicole, he met Vanessa. While Nicole was a calm, shy and quiet girl, Vanessa was the complete opposite, fiery, explosive, and rule-breaking. Miles lost his mind from passion within a week. Vanessa, breathing hotly on his neck, said, "I want to go to the end of the world with you, to the farthest edge, and be there with you, only with you." And he, unable to refuse her, gave up everything, and they left. At first he was tormented by a guilty conscience, but then life spun around him. However, Vanessa soon wanted to go to the other end of the world, but at this time not with him. Frankly, Vanessa seriously shook his nervous system during the 5 years they were together. Therefore, when she decided to leave him for another man, Miles was just happy. He didn't go back to his hometown, especially since no one was waiting for him there. And he was ashamed too. He thought that if he met Nicole, whom he left without saying a word, he would vanish into thin air with shame. Instead, Miles plunged into work, and by the age of 30, he had his own little business, and by 40, he was considered the richest person in the area. But he lacked one thing: happiness. Of course, he had women, but he didn't want to tie himself to any of them. He couldn't understand why until one beautiful day when he realized that he was comparing every woman to Nicole. And then he decided to go back. He did everything quickly so that he wouldn't give himself time to change his mind. When he settled in a new place, he began to look for Nicole. Miles understood that she might be a married and respectable woman, but to his enormous horror, he found her not married, but dying in a hospice. "Miles, is that you? You came back," she whispered when he entered her room. Miles, seeing a tear roll down her cheek, rushed to her and hugged her hand. "Nicole, my dear Nicole, everything will be okay. Do you hear? We will definitely cure you." Nicole smiled faintly, and Miles rushed to the doctor. "You understand there is no chance. She has a month left, maybe 2. "This cannot be. I don't believe you." "It's too late. No treatment can help anymore. The most you can do for her is to brighten her last days." Miles did everything he could. He took care of Nicole and hired the best caretakers for her. One day, while sitting next to her, he asked, "Tell me, have you got a dream? What do you want?" Nicole smiled weakly. "You know, I actually have a dream, or rather 2. I always wanted to marry you. When you left, I had already found a wonderful wedding dress and imagined myself wearing it. I even saw our wedding in my dreams. It was so beautiful." Miles closed his eyes painfully, then said, "We will have a wedding, a real one, I promise you." He stood up, was about to leave, but stopped. "And the second dream?" "I'll tell you later. I will definitely tell you." 2 days later, Nicole, who could barely stand without the support of his arm, became his wife in a wedding dress, with a beautiful hairstyle and tears in her eyes. She held on with all her might, and even managed to attend the celebratory dinner. There weren't many people. Miles hadn't made friends here yet, so the guests were mainly medical staff. those with whom Nicole had been in contact in recent times. And 3 days later, she got worse. The woman was taken urgently to the hospital. Miles didn't leave her side, transferred all his duties to his deputy. Luckily, the man was reliable. He understood that this was her end. Nicole, what about the second dream? You wanted to tell me something, he asked her, gently stroking her head. But Nicole didn't answer. A week later, she had gone forever. Miles didn't just cry. He roared like a wounded animal. He blamed himself for everything. If he had come earlier, if he had never left. Today marked exactly 40 days since Nicole left him forever. He sighed heavily, put his hand on the gravestone for a second, and walked to the cemetery exit. He didn't want to go home. It was too lonely there. Miles seriously thought about getting a cat, but immediately dismissed the idea. Who would be with him if he was constantly in his office? Coming home, Miles walked through the empty rooms and looked at the layer of dust. A woman used to come and clean twice a week, but she had quit a month ago, and he should have found a new housekeeper a long time ago. Suddenly the doorbell rang. Miles opened the door and saw a thin girl in front of him. "Hello? Excuse me, please. Your neighbours suggested that you might have a job for me." Miles looked at her with curiosity. "What kind of job are you looking for?" "Oh, it doesn't matter to me. I don't have a choice in my position. I can clean, cook, take care of the garden. I just need a job. And, if possible, with accommodation." "Well, come in. Do you have any documents?" "Yes, of course. Here are recommendations from my previous job." Miles was sifting through the papers. The girl was almost 22 years old. He looked up at her and nodded towards her small but noticeable belly. "Does the child have a father?" The girl wasn't embarrassed. "Of course, he has a father. Children are not born without a father." But he decided to wash his hands of it. "You're not from this city. Why did you come to us?" "There's a reason. I wouldn't want to talk about it now. Maybe later." Miles thought for a while, then said, "Okay, I'll take you, but with a probationary period. I never hired anyone off the street before, always through an agency, but there's a first time for everything. Let's go. I'll show you the room and where everything is." 3 days later, Miles couldn't understand how he lived without Emma. Everything at home was clean, and this was, although his house was huge. The aromas emanating from the kitchen were so enticing that he felt like he was in a good restaurant. One evening, pushing away an empty plate, Miles said with a smile, "Emma, if you're going to cook so deliciously all the time, I'll get fat soon." She laughed. "No, you only eat once a day. You have coffee in the morning and then you're gone all day." Miles, looking thoughtfully at her, suddenly asked, "Well, maybe now you'll tell me what brought you to our city and what happened to the father of the child." Emma sighed and sat down. "Well, I'll start from the beginning. The father of the child is the nephew of the people I was working for before you. They're very decent, good people. The owner wanted his nephew to marry me, but I refused. I've just burned out immediately. It all became disgusting, so I decided to leave. Besides, somewhere in this city, my mother lives." "Do you not know where your mother lives? How can that be?" "Oh, it's a very strange story. I grew up in an orphanage. My mother left me at the maternity hospital and ran away. I've always thought that she, well, to put it mildly, wasn't a very good person. But about a year ago I received a big letter from her. You see, she left me, not because she didn't love me, but because she couldn't do otherwise. She was alone without money, without support. Her fiancé left her when she was pregnant, but she didn't blame him. Said he didn't know about the pregnancy. Mum wanted to take me later, but couldn't find me. All this time she was looking for me. She found me when I was already an adult. She wrote that she would understand if I didn't want to communicate with her, but she wanted me to know that my parents were not alcoholics or drug addicts. Dad was also from this city, but went somewhere far away. She lived here. Then the pregnancy happened. Somehow, everything went wrong for her, and now she's sick. But she says she's fighting, that she'll definitely beat the disease, and she'll wait until we meet. I was confused and didn't know how to react to this letter. I was adopted 3 times in my life, and all 3 times I ended up back in the orphanage. The government either paid too little for me, or the foster parents had their own child. Well, it doesn't matter. I got used to the fact that no one needed me, including my mother. But she wrote so passionately. I couldn't decide on anything for a year, and now I finally decided to come here. I want to find her and talk. Miles listened and did not understand what was bothering him, and then he realized. This story was very similar to his own story with Nicole, only Nicole didn't have children. He looked at Emma and felt a drop of sweat run down his back. "Emma, may I see this letter?" "Yes, but are you okay? You look pale." "Emma, everything's fine. Please, bring me the letter." Emma left and Miles approached the window. "No, of course it's all nonsense. It just can't be. But he will definitely help Emma. She has no one else to turn to." The girl returned, handed him an envelope. He unfolded several sheets, and he felt awful. Nicole had a special way of writing the letter H. He had never seen it from anyone else. Now he knew he was looking at the familiar H letters and wanted to cry. "What's wrong with you?" Emma asked anxiously. Miles did not answer. He was reading what Nicole had written to her daughter, whom she had been forced to leave because of him. Finally, he put the sheets of paper aside. "Emma, get ready. I know where your mother is." The girl slowly stood up. "Maybe tomorrow. Probably. We need to warn her that we are coming." "No, Emma. There is no need to warn her," Miles replied sadly. 40 minutes later they stood at Nicole's grave. "I only now realize that you were very similar. Perhaps that's why I didn't refuse you in the job, even though I didn't realize it." A tear rolled down Emma's cheek. "She couldn't wait for me. She fought with all her might, but couldn't make it." Miles didn't stop her from crying, realizing that she had to endure another blow and find out that he was the person who betrayed her mother and because of whom she lost her childhood. He didn't know what she would say or how she would behave, but he expected that the girl simply might not want to see him anymore. They returned home. Seeing Emma's condition, Miles decided to leave his revelations for later. Before going to her room, Emma looked at him closely. "Are you the man? My mother's fiancé?" He sighed heavily and nodded. Emma looked at him for a moment and silently disappeared into her room. A couple of hours later, Miles was still awake. He was sure that Emma was awake too. The man paced back and forth in his office, feeling like a father and almost a grandfather. It was strange, but he was happy that he was not alone anymore. Suddenly the door to Emma's room slammed shut and he went out to the hall. Emma was getting dressed with a bag next to her. "Emma, won't you even listen to me?" he asked. She looked at him anxiously. "I thought you were asleep." "Emma, why are you leaving? Will you never be able to forgive me?" The girl sat down on a poof in the hallway and started to explain. "I don't blame you for anything. Maybe at that time it was necessary to act exactly like that. I am not a judge to condemn your actions, and the actions of my mother. It happened the way it happened, but I can't stay." Miles didn't understand. "Emma, why? You understand that I have enough space. Why can't you stay if you don't hold a grudge against me?" She looked up at him. "I don't want you to think that I stayed because of your money, and I don't know if you want me and my baby to stay here. I don't want to bother you with unexpected relatives." Miles nervously laughed. "This is nonsense. Firstly, you're not guilty that your father is a millionaire. And secondly, Emma, I ask you to stay. I want to have a family, and I want my daughter from the only woman I ever loved to live with me." 4 months later, a strong boy was born. Miles looked at his grandson in amazement. "He's so small, so cute, and I'm a grandfather." The man carefully took the baby in his arms and felt something pinch in his eyes. He quickly turned away so Emma wouldn't notice, but she did. She put her hand on his shoulder. "Dad, what's wrong?" Miles hugged her tightly with his other arm. "Oh, Emma, we'll live so well now. Stefan will go hunting and fishing with me. We'll box together." Emma laughed. "Not so fast. He doesn't even know how to walk yet." "It doesn't matter. We'll learn everything quickly together," replied the happy Miles. If you enjoyed the story, please support me with a thumbs up button. Thank you. Clarice walked down the boulevard with dishevelled emotions. The cold wind blew in her face, but she seemed oblivious to its unpleasant touch. She was angry with herself, her husband Geoffrey, and the whole world because yet another attempt to conceive had failed. This meant that all the expensive treatment they had been undergoing for 6 months at a costly clinic was for naught. Her mobile phone rang. "Well, I won't answer. No matter who it is, I'm not in the mood," the woman decided. But the caller was insistent, and Clarice had to pull her phone out of the inner pocket of her purse. "Hubby," read the inscription on the screen. "Clarice, where are you? I wanted to ask you what you would like for dinner. I'm going to cook something delicious for us," said a pleasant male voice. "I don't know. Actually, I don't need any dinner. I'm not hungry," Clarice coldly replied. "Where are you? Let me meet you. I shouldn't have listened to you and not gone to the appointment with you." Geoffrey was already speaking nervously. "Everything's fine. I'll be there soon," Clarice said and ended the conversation. She understood that she was wrong to be angry with her husband, but despair was overwhelming her, and it was difficult for her to keep herself in check. The exact reason for their inability to conceive could not be determined, even by numerous doctors they had consulted. Some said the problem was with Clarice, others claimed it was with her husband, and still others said it was due to incompatibility. The fourth ones reassured them, "Everything will be fine, just wait a little." But this dragged on for many years. Geoffrey and Clarice got married early, at the age of 12. Contrary to popular belief that they should wait, finish college, find a job, they replied, "Why wait if we're good together?" The wedding glasses ran out, and even then the newlyweds knew that they would have a large family. 3 children. But it didn't happen. Instead of a gang of babies, there were dozens of medical examinations and consultations. This was followed by endless treatments in clinics. Huge hopes were placed on the IVF procedure, but something went wrong there too. The laughter of children never echoed in the apartment of the young family. As time went on, Clarice became more convinced that she was cursed. Once, when she was 17, a gypsy woman in the park called out to her and offered to tell her fortune. Clarice was afraid of gypsies and, of course, refused, running away from the park. The gypsy woman, annoyed, shouted after her, "You will not have happiness, and you will not have children." Years later, Clarice would often remember those words and begin to believe in the power of the curse. Her husband, Geoffrey, insisted that it was all nonsense, just the anger of an impudent gypsy, and that she needed to forget it. But Clarice couldn't forget, especially when another attempt to get pregnant failed. Lost in bitter thoughts, Clarice didn't notice that she had approached the house. Geoffrey hurried to the hallway at the sound of keys. Seeing Clarice's saddened eyes, he immediately understood the reason for her bad mood. "Don't worry, my dear. You know that we are fighters, and we will fight until we win. Let's go have dinner. I have a gift for you." Geoffrey embraced her. "Geoffrey, I don't want anything. I'd rather lie down," Clarice replied. "Well, at least for 20 minutes, Geoffrey asked, looking affectionately at Clarice. And she melted, just like on their first meeting 12 years ago. On the table was a freshly prepared dinner, filling the room with its aromatic scent. Geoffrey was always caring, especially now that he knew about Clarice's difficult emotional state. He himself was worried about the lack of children. "Clarice, look what I have." Geoffrey handed Clarice an envelope. Clarice opened it curiously. Inside were tickets for a flight to a city whose name she had never heard before. Clarice looked at her husband in surprise, not understanding why they needed this trip. "My dear, there is wonderful nature and a beautiful temple, but the point is not in it, but in the priest. According to people, he performs miracles for families with the same problem as ours. Shall we go? We won't lose anything if we visit him, but we can gain a lot," Geoffrey persuaded her. Clarice didn't need any convincing. Wherever there was a small chance of getting pregnant, she grasped it like a drowning person clings to a straw. Her eyes sparkled and she smiled. "Yes, dear, of course, let's go." Geoffrey had the gift of lifting my spirits and pulling me out of depression. I envy myself for having such a wonderful husband, Clarice thought to herself. And in just a few moments, she was enjoying the dinner prepared by Geoffrey with gusto. It took only one day to get ready. Successfully landing and driving another hour and a half on a cramped bus, Clarice and Geoffrey found themselves in a tiny provincial town. Amazingly, there was even a hotel. Of course, it was nothing compared to a seaside hotel, but they could spend a few days there. However, the road to the temple in this spring mud left much to be desired. Walking on the slippery cobblestones, Clarice almost twisted her ankle, but it didn't upset her at all. Compared to their dream of having a child together, it was nothing. The temple was truly impressive. Its beauty inside and out left no one indifferent. When Geoffrey and Clarice entered the temple, a mass was in progress. The feeling of grace and faith in a better future overwhelmed everyone, even the most serious men. The emotions were so intense that they sent shivers down the spine. Clarice even burst into tears, never forgetting why she came here. At that moment, she believed in God like never. "Everything will work out for us, for sure," Clarice insisted, and sincerely prayed together with the other parishioners. When the Mass ended, Clarice rushed to the priest, as if afraid that he would leave and never return. "Reverend Roche, I really need to talk to you." "Yes, of course. How can I help you? Let's sit down," the priest offered, looking intently at the woman. The thing, Clarice hesitated, but she gathered her thoughts and told the sad story of her family. "You're tired of the unsuccessful procedures, you say. You're on the right track. There will be more tests and doctors. With God's help, you'll overcome everything. You have great strength, and your spirit is strong. Only..." The priest suddenly stopped and continued to stare at Clarice like an X-ray. "Only what?" the woman asked, frightened. "Only a child, perhaps not even one, will be born, not quite normal," the priest replied. Clarice was happy and upset at the same time. "What do you mean? Sick?" she asked. "I won't tell you anything more, my dear. Only God knows what will happen next. I know that you will be happy, that's for sure. The most important thing is to do everything the doctors tell you. God bless you," the priest said and left. Clarice was impressed by what she heard and grabbed her husband's hand, chattering. "Geoffrey, did you hear what the Reverend Roche said? We'll have children. It's a miracle." "But..." "Of course we will, Clarice. No buts. The priest advised you to see a doctor. You know, when we come back, we'll go to in vitro fertilization. I believe that this time everything will work out for us." Geoffrey reassured her. Yes, let's do that. I promise you." Clarice was inspired. That night she couldn't fall asleep for a long time, and only at dawn did she have a beautiful dream. She and her husband were walking along the seashore when 2 cheerful girls, sisters, ran up to them, holding hands tightly. "Daddy, Mummy, we're finally together!" they exclaimed in unison. "Clarice, wake up! Get up! We're late for the bus." Geoffrey lightly shook her shoulder. Clarice was in a great mood all the way home. She hadn't felt such lightness and joy in a long time. This feeling of confidence in a happy future didn't leave her when they went to the IVF procedure with her husband. A month later, Clarice felt that something unusual was happening to her. The symptoms were all there: slight nausea in the morning, sleepiness, and slight weakness. Clarice was even afraid to say that long-awaited word so as not to scare it away. "Geoffrey, imagine, I think I'm pregnant. Tomorrow I'll go to the doctor and take a test. Everything will be clear. But, oh my God, how much I want to know it today. Geoffrey, if it's not too much trouble, go and buy a test for me at the pharmacy," Clarice asked. Geoffrey dashed to the pharmacy. 5 minutes after his returning, Clarice burst out of the bathroom, overjoyed. "I'm pregnant! Pregnant!" she exclaimed, seeing the coveted 2 stripes. The priest's words had come true. Geoffrey picked up his beloved and began to dance around the room. Usually men are more restrained in their emotions, but this was a long-awaited child. When the first moment of euphoria passed, the couple decided not to relax. It was too early to celebrate the victory. Everything needed to be checked. The next morning, Clarice eagerly went to the doctor. Her soul was rejoicing. Finally, a real miracle had happened. "Well, let's check. Here's a referral for a blood test. Tomorrow everything will become clear," the doctor said significantly. The analysis confirmed her pregnancy. The couple was hit by a second wave of uncontrollable happiness. No wonder. They had been waiting for this event for years. "You'll need an ultrasound in a week and a half. Let's see how the fetus is developing," the doctor said. "Yes, of course," Clarice replied, not doubting for a moment that everything would be fine. As she lay down on the medical couch, she suddenly felt afraid. Unfortunately, her fear was not unfounded. "Doctor, is something wrong?" the girl asked anxiously. Suddenly, the doctor, who had been chatting happily with her until then, fell silent. Apparently he was trying to choose his words carefully so as not to scare the patient to death. "Doctor, what's wrong with the baby?" Clarice repeated her question, trembling with fear. Finally, the doctor looked away from the screen and said quietly, "You will not have one child, but two. But they will share one egg and one placenta between them. This means that there is a far greater chance that one of the babies will die, as it will be in less comfortable conditions than the other. A lack of nutrition, for example, could already lead to a fatal outcome. This is terrible, but not the worst thing." Clarice's hands and feet went cold. She felt as if she had been plunged headlong into icy water. She panicked and looked at the doctor. Apparently the doctor himself was in shock and was trying to cope with his uncontrollable emotions so as not to scare the patient to death. There is also a high risk of pathology. The babies may be fused. These are rare cases in the world, but such a possibility exists here. I will understand if you decide to have an abortion. The doctor destroyed Clarice mentally. She lay there, neither alive nor dead, and whispered, "Fused? Does that mean they could share a body? Legs? Arms?" Clarice asked, and tears streamed down her cheeks. "This is only a conjecture. We need to observe. You are still in the early stages of pregnancy. Your doctor will suggest treatment methods that may reduce the risks of pathology. The most important thing is to keep yourself together." The doctor encouraged her as best as he could in such a situation. Clarice struggled to get up from the couch and, slumped with grief, made her way to the door. She had not expected such a turn of fate. Her crystal dream of happiness had collapsed. Only one thought was spinning in her brain. "I will have disabled children. Why did this happen to me? Why?" Suddenly her vision darkened. Her head became heavy. In the next moment, Clarice realized that her legs were giving way and she was falling. A moment later, she fell into darkness, but managed to feel someone's hands supporting her. Clarice regained consciousness in one of the offices. "What kind of concert are you giving here? Get yourself together," said the unfamiliar doctor strictly, and adjusted her glasses on her nose. "I have such grief," Clarice blubbered with tears in her eyes. "I've heard it all. You don't need to continue. You are not the first to have a pathology detected in your early stages. You will be treated, and everything may change by the time you give birth." Clarice just shook her head. She was so inconsolable that no comforting words could reach her. She walked down the street and mechanically moved her legs, which carried her home. The phone rang. Clarice mechanically pressed the answer button. "Clarice, how are you? You haven't called in a while." Geoffrey's voice was heard. "Everything is bad," Clarice said through tears. "What happened? Are you okay?" But Geoffrey shouted in vain because Clarice turned off the phone. The same thoughts were spinning in her head, one after another. "Get rid of them," said the inner voice. "No, I can't do that. I'm so tired. Maybe it's better to let me be gone. Then it will be easier for everyone," whispered Clarice, suddenly deciding on a terrible thing. Her hands trembled with a slight tremble as she gathered all the medicine in the house, stacking the pills in one pile. "Now I'll mix it and swallow it. Life is over," Clarice decided. She poured half a glass of water, folded all the pills, and was ready to drink it all at once, but then The sound of the opening door was heard, and Geoffrey rushed into the apartment out of breath. Glancing at the kitchen table, where empty blister packs of pills lay, he immediately understood everything and knocked the glass out of Clarice's hands. "What are you doing? How dare you?" he shouted. "Our children will be freaks, the kind that are rare in the world," Clarice screamed in response, her voice breaking. "They are our children. Even if not completely healthy, we won't give up. Remember, we promised each other that we would be together in sorrow and joy. Keep your promise." Geoffrey tried to bring his wife back to life. Clarice sat down on a chair and hugged her head with her hands. When a doctor tells you something like this, you can really lose your mind. But her husband, caring and understanding, still saved her. "Sweetheart, you need to rest. Sleep. I'm giving you sleeping pills. And tomorrow we'll come up with a plan of action. You know we'll definitely come up with something." Geoffrey hugged her shoulders. Although his heart was beating wildly, he was of course upset about his wife's unfavourable prognosis of a multiple pregnancy, but he was afraid to show his condition to Clarice. After all, he almost lost her today. Clarice, burying her head in the pillow, fell asleep. Reverend Roche, the same priest who predicted the birth of unusual children, appeared in her dream. "How weak you turned out to be, Clarice. Can you really do this? This is not Christian-like." The priest looked sternly at her. "I told you that you would be happy, and you would be happy. Just follow the doctor's instructions and pray a lot. Sincerely, selflessly. Don't give in to bad moods. It's a step towards the abyss." The next morning, Clarice woke up in a spiritual, different person. She told her husband about yesterday's shock and dream. "I told you not to give up, and this Reverend, he's a wonderful person. Even from a distance he helps. Give me your word that you won't give up any more. Whatever happens next, we'll handle it." Geoffrey instilled hope in her. And then began the same endless chain of medical procedures, utilizing the latest techniques. Geoffrey spared no expense and took his wife to another city to see doctors who had first-hand experience dealing with severe cases like Clarice's. The only thing the woman was afraid of was having an ultrasound. When it was necessary, she asked not to tell her about what was happening inside her. After each ultrasound, she went to the church and prayed, as Reverend Roche had taught her, with great faith in a happy future. And after visiting the church, she often felt more intensive pushes of the babies, as if they wanted to be born as soon as possible. This made her feel calmer and lighter. A feeling of peace and prosperity returned to her. Time went on relentlessly. The delivery date was approaching. Clarice's excitement was growing like a snowball. All pregnant women feel discomfort at this moment. What to say about Clarice? The Council of Doctors decided to operate on Clarice. They were afraid of natural childbirth in such an extraordinary case. The day had come. Clarice tossed and turned all night, which became difficult for her because of her large belly. The anxious state did not leave her, and in the morning the sun came out, warm and spring-like. Birds sang, as if all nature were waking up, anticipating a miracle. Clarice held on to her cross all morning and prayed to God. The clock hands hurried towards the time when her babies were to be born. Clarice remembered every detail, the focused faces of doctors and nurses, the many of them in the operating room, the bright light of the lamps, and even the white cloth that separated the operation from her eyes, will remain in her memory. Also the painful injection that plunged part of her body into a state of anesthesia. Despite being immobilized, Clarice felt the doctor's hands performing the operation. She also felt the 2 little lives that will now see the light. She really wanted to look at their tiny faces. She already loved them. Bad thoughts were long thrown out of her head. These are her children, and she will never abandon them. Clarice drifted away in her thoughts, and her imagination had already gone far beyond the limits of the operating room. The dream was interrupted by the voice of Dr. Morgan, who was performing the operation. He asked the assistants, "Are you ready to take the first child?" The woman answered barely audibly. At that moment, she unexpectedly whispered, "Oh, I can't get him out. Something is blocking it." Oh my God. Did they really merge together? The last ultrasound didn't show this. The astonished doctor replied. Clarice lay like a stone. She felt that not only the part of her body that succumbed to anesthesia, but also the other one had turned to stone. A lump rose in her throat. "Doctor, what's happening? Please don't stay silent," cried Clarice. Dr. Morgan knew he couldn't wait any longer. He needed to carefully extract the babies from the mother's body to avoid any mishaps. "Everything will be all right. Don't worry," he told Clarice and instructed his assistant. "Take the first baby. I'll immediately take the second." At that moment, bright sunlight flooded the operating room. It was as if angels from heaven had sent it. That's what it seemed like to Clarice. And a miracle happened. 2 girls, 2 little angels, were born into the world holding hands. The doctors were stunned. No one expected to see this, and no one would have believed it if they hadn't witnessed it for themselves. The little girls held on to each other so tightly that at first Dr. Morgan thought that they were stuck together by their palms. But thank God that wasn't the case. Their hands unfurled, and then they immediately reached for each other again. Clarice felt like the happiest person on earth. The nurses washed and swaddled the babies and showed them to their mother. Clarice barely touched them with her lips and immediately named them Anna and Maria. Geoffrey, who was more worried about the babies than Clarice, agreed to the names. The newspapers wrote about this unique case, where a terrible pathology was diagnosed at the beginning of the pregnancy, but it didn't happen. The internet was filled with messages about it. One girl, Anna, was completely healthy, but the other, Maria, had heart problems. She had to undergo 2 complex surgeries, but that wasn't all. Expensive rehabilitation awaited the parents. Geoffrey did everything he could to find the necessary amount of money, but it was so high that he couldn't get enough. The whole world helped the young family. Even the doctors and medical staff at the maternity hospital where the babies were born offered help. Thanks to the internet, information about the sick child quickly spread online. Hundreds of caring people provided help, and the baby girl started to recover. The threat to her life disappeared. Nothing has changed since that day. The same state of grace and spiritual peace. The Reverend Roche led the Mass. the same man who had once predicted a difficult but happy destiny for Clarice. Today, he had a different mission: to baptize two charming baby girls, Anna and Maria. They stood silently clinging to their parents, holding hands out of habit. When the baptism took place, tears streamed down Clarice and Geoffrey's faces. Now, the already strong bond between the daughters was also strengthened by God's blessing. Years will pass, and it's uncertain how the lives of the two girls will turn out, but we really want to hope that they will be happy. Miracles happen. We just have to believe.